It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, get your engines started because it is another live worldwide transmission. We are going to be here for the next 3 hours. And we have joining us coming up in the second hour, always informative, Alfred Adask. 60 Minutes calls him a super patriot, a evil sovereign citizen type. I find him to be very articulate and informative. We haven't had him on probably in 6 months. We'll get a updated view from him on the status of the world and what's happening in his own battle with the globalist. So that is coming up. The Drudge Report is now helping to make a story national that we have really been trying to focus on. And no, I'm not just talking about the case of Brandon Robb, the Marine, held for a week for absolutely no reason, for his brother and sister in his own Facebook comments that were not calls to action or violent. And that whole saga, since then, we have fleshed out the fact that they are grabbing veterans all over the United States for their political speech and grabbing people off their back porches, cleaning their guns, you name it. They're using involuntary commitment to do that. And now a Suzanne Posel story from Infowars.com is on the #1 website in the world, drudgereport.com. U.S. veterans forcibly sequestered in mental hospitals is indefinite detention. So very good news that that is now out there. And it's also up at Infowars.com. And we will certainly ask all of the listeners to get that out to everyone, because only exposure will be able to reveal what's happening. Also, I've seen these actually driving around in Texas, but it's in the news more and more that not just on the border, but all over the United States, these giant wheeled armored trucks, different variants of them, painted black, are showing up with Homeland Security dressed up in these futuristic military outfits. Again, just another sign of the ongoing incremental martial law system that is unfolding. We're going to be going over some of that today. There are 2 different reports. It's in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, and it's on local television there, but we have 2 different reports by our reporters at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, Kurt Nimmo and Paul Watson, with different angles on this. Black Hawk helicopters over Minneapolis worry residents. Concerned observers call media. Police last night report choppers. Now, when they would do these urban drills in 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, the media, even if you had footage of them blowing up a building they'd covertly leased, they would come on the news and say it doesn't exist. I have a news article hanging out there on the wall, a news clipping, with the Austin American-Statesman saying that I was basically a conspiracy theorist and crazy, that I talked about black helicopters next to an article about the black helicopter raids, making people have heart attacks at a nursing home 300 feet away from the police station they blew up in Kingsville. And by the way, we have footage of it. They had MPs one time in San Antonio come over and say, give us your tape. And Mike Hansen wouldn't do it, so the MP pulled his Beretta 9mm out. I mean, it's all completely lawless, that's what they're doing, but it's to acclimate and condition everybody. We're going to be going over that. Homeland Security is expanding to sporting events. TSA now rolling out. They want to have the new American handshake. You know what that means, in your pants. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday, the 28th day of... What month is it? I'm joking. Of August 2012, and we are going to be here for the next 3 hours today. Well, before I plunge into all of the news here, it makes my head spin how fast the world is moving, how fast the years are moving, how fast the time is flying. And I know everyone marvels at this, but here we are right now, spinning around on the surface of this globe, and it seems like yesterday was just the year 2001, and it's already nearing the end. Before we know it, we'll be into 2013. And you watch, we'll all still be here after December 21st and the supposed end of the Mayan calendar. It's amazing how people put stock in such baloney, even if you believe in Mayan mysticism and astrology and astronomy. You have to understand that their own tablets and religious analysis simply said it's the end of an age. It's the end of an age in December of 2012. The end of an age, the lighting of a new hearth. A new fire will be set in the fireplace. And, of course, the hearth is the seat of the sun. So is the sun going to go dark and then light back up in some Luciferian exercise? I'm just waiting for the, quote, mainstream dinosaur media, and you better believe that they will do something like this to come out and blame the entire alternative media for promoting 2012 when it's actually the mainstream media and popular culture that has been basically force-fed on the public. But I'm already digressing here. Thank you again for joining us on this Tuesday, 28th of August, 2012 edition. I am Alex Jones, your host, and I am simply someone that wants liberty and freedom in my time. I want my wonderful children to grow up in a free society and to enjoy some of the basic liberties that I had growing up that now, to a great extent, are on the ash heap of history. No one can deny that our culture is being converted from a free society to an authoritarian society. Every authoritarian, tyrannical, oppressive, centralized benchmark is being met and exceeded, and the establishment itself admits that they want to convert not only to a political tyranny, but a physical and economic tyranny by design. So the ruling class, the people that own the puppet presidents and prime ministers, are on record in the Royal Society of England, the United Nations, the Club of Rome, the Council on Foreign Relations, ad nauseum books published by German prime ministers and presidents and chancellors. Germany has a president and a chancellor. President and chancellor, European prime ministers, Asian prime ministers and presidents. It's all promoted in our face, knowing the general public does not read political white papers, does not read economics text, is not investigating it. And so the establishment can operate basically as they please, as if we are in a coma. I liken to the analogy to we are all basically in comas in our beds, and the people rocking the cradle are vampires. And imagine a society where conscious, focused, intelligent vampires can get away with whatever they want, however they want, with a sleeping population. And, of course, I'm not saying they're literal vampires, but they might as well be, because it's the same effect. They have a disdain for the public. They also work as hard as they can to keep us in this mind-numbed position. And I am simply here to try to get people to understand that our society is sliding towards absolute humiliating and saddening and denigrating of everything that is innocent and good. And I am trying my best to not just reach out to the general public, but to reach out to the substrata of the ruling intelligentsia of the planet to rediscover your humanity and wrest control of the levers from the alpha psychos, the alpha maggots that are currently in control of the ship that is humanity. I thought long and hard today about the points I wanted to make on this subject, and I always push it off because there's so much news in the first hour, and then by the time I get to later in the third hour, I am a bit more tired, and it's hard to be able to summon all the different points and datum that I want to bring forward, but there is a collective insanity in the ruling class. They are not in control of themselves. They're in control of almost everything else, or attempting to get control of everything, and will do anything to get the power. And the argument is, if they don't get it, someone else will get it. Many of these delusional people actually think they're guardians of humanity, when if you look at the fruits of what they've delivered and what they've deployed, it is absolute, stinking, reeking, ugly death. The fruits of the New World Order are abomination. Absolute, total, stinking ugliness. And I have a large vocabulary, but the only word that properly describes it is absolute reeking stench. The stench of hell itself. A spiritual stench that the soul can smell. And you ask, why do they do this? Why are they committed to evil? Because it is their essence, it is their nature. It's what they do. And they're not going to be argued with. They're not going to be convinced out of this. But there are many people who are delusional and who are slaves to this system, who have never gotten outside their compartmentalization and do not realize that there is a false reality being constructed and woven around them, an artificial environment, an artificial habitat that's a cross between one of the high-tech squares you see in a place like Times Square and a gulag. And it seeks to destroy the very essence of creativity and the very essence of liberty and the very essence of everything good and wholesome. And it seeks to create instability and destruction and destabilization. All of the globalist policies being carried out in the Middle East to get the Shiites and the Sunnis killing each other. People say, oh, well, let the Arabs kill each other. That's how we'll dominate. We'll dominate? We don't dominate the Middle East. We pay with our money, with our blood, with our treasure, with our name, with our bad reputation. But we aren't getting any of the spoils of the Middle East, even if you wanted to be evil and feel like you were dominating something and taking something over. In fact, the globalists want to do to the Middle East and every other country and every other region and every other culture, exactly what they're doing to us as well. I mean, you look at it, destroying the family, by design, on record. Adulterating and poisoning the food, the water, the air, by design in all their major white papers. I'm looking at one over there on the counter. Eco-Science, written by the White House Science Czar. All of this is being done as a scorched earth policy to absolutely wreck society. So if you're an Army officer listening and you're engaged in PSYOPs, and you've got hundreds of people under you engaged in whisper campaigns and disinfo campaigns and false flags and all sorts of other events, you feel pretty powerful. You're seeing the power of your manipulation. But you yourself are in another compartment of a PSYOP itself. So you're living a delusion. You don't serve America. You serve the bankers, who themselves are eugenicists, who serve the devil himself. But I've already digressed. I will try to stay focused, write some notes during the break, because I wrote a bunch last night and then left them at home. And I want to get into the nature of the New World Order and really put a call out to everybody serving it. Understand that you don't have a choice. You'll either be enslaved and destroyed by the globalists and used, or you'll fight back and join humanity. And I was just thinking about a report yesterday that Paul Watson did that I need to cover, talking about here in Austin, Texas, but it's also in other areas of the country. The students are getting GPS tracker necklaces so the state can follow them around, and they're being given mentors by the state that check in on them. They're called parole officers. And, of course, they're encouraged to also spy on their parents. It is just such an incredible conversion from a free society. And now they've bankrupted people so much and raised the property taxes so much that they're taking our property taxes all over the country and setting up pre-K training. You notice the more education you get, the more school days, the more hours, the more dumbed down our children become, because it's official policy to turn them into little politically correct, addled fools that can, obsess over their race all day, but can't engage in reading, writing, or arithmetic. All of it by design. And the worse the school systems get, it doesn't matter. The more government control is then offered as the solution. And it's not insane. The war on drugs, when they say it's a failure, no, it's not. They ship more drugs in. They put more people in prison to go to college to be criminals. And they put more money in the big mega banks. And criminals go out and rob your houses so that they have money to buy the drugs that are overpriced because the government keeps them illegal and controls the black market. I was seeing a statistic last night. I was watching News 8 Austin. And again, this is a story that affects everybody across the country. And they were talking about Austin being 7th in the nation for home invasions and robberies and property theft. And the police, of course, can't do anything to stop it, because this is known as a happy hunting ground by the illegal aliens. That's the predominant group, but a lot of others as well, because this is known where the liberals live. And I was looking last night on the Austin Police Department's own crime maps. You can find them online, the crime hotspots. It's all the liberal areas. It's not even the ghettos and areas. They go into the areas that are known to be super ultra liberal, that have the bike lanes taking over the streets and everything, and areas where if you're not a liberal, you're not welcome. And it's all the super trendy areas are a happy hunting ground of mugging and stealing and killing and carjacking. And the other areas, the areas where people are armed and where you have a more libertarian demographic, the crime rate is very low. Texas per capita has a very low crime rate compared to states like New York or Illinois or California. And you can look up those numbers for yourself. The unified crime statistics are online, even at the Department of Justice. But it's just interesting to know, in a town where you've got the dingbat liberals, who aren't real liberals at all. They love torture. They love secret arrest. They love NDAA. They love world government. They love all these wars, as long as it's their guy doing it. If it's Bill Clinton blowing up Serbia, bringing in al-Qaeda to destabilize the country, and then attacking, saying that Serbia was persecuting people, they love it. If it's putting al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria to line up the Christians and blacks and blow their heads off, they love it. I mean, if it's corrupt and stinking, they like it. Because it's gang politics, where you just, hey, I'm going to support my party no matter what they do. And if Mitt Romney gets in, it'll be the same thing. Suddenly all these conservatives that are worried about gun control laws and open borders and corruption, suddenly when Mitt Romney's doing it, they're going to just sit down and shut up and go, well, he's our guy. And that's what I hate about the two-party system and the left-right paradigm. Because there are differences in the people that support Republicans and the people that support Democrats. I generally like Republicans more because they're pro-gun, anti-abortion, national sovereignty, at least on the surface. On the surface. But when you get down to policy, it's the same deal, because it's the globalist. It's not the parties. The parties are just management teams for Slavery Incorporated. Now, when we come back, I have a challenge to Republicans and conservatives, but to Democrats alike. Stay with us. The globalists run the planet. They engineer the society. They decide what backdoor technology to build in for your cell phones, your dishwashers, your dryers, your computers, your thermostats. They decide what to backdoor engineer into the corn and soybeans and wheat and beets and hundreds of other staple vegetables that you eat. They decide what to add to your water under the name fluoride. They decide what to spray in your skies. They decide, now 20 plus years ago, to violate the Pentagon rule on not allowing troops to use depleted uranium in combat. And it's depleted uranium and the story of depleted uranium that is a key, in my mind, to explaining the whole world to people and how it works. Because within that microcosm, you can expand out to the macro. And I've got a challenge here in just a moment for everybody. But the establishment knows how to condition us. They know the tricks that work best. They know how to divide and conquer. They know how to distract us. But if you get on the air and talk about just the news that's happening that day, it's interesting. It's informative, but only to a certain level. Because if there's not the backdrop around it of understanding the philosophy of the people that run this globe, nothing is ever going to make sense in context. And we have no hope of ever changing the disastrous, nightmare, hell-bound course that humanity and the elite themselves are hurtling towards. Now, the story of DU, there are Army reports from 1947. We've had the guy that literally wrote the book, Dr. Doug Rockey, on about this many times, the whole history of DU. But by the late 40s, they had Lawrence Livermore Laboratories and others putting out reports saying we can use DU in munitions. It is the incredible battlefield weapon. It'll cut through all the armor of the enemy. Even troops with small arms can use it. It's the answer in Europe to the Soviets' superiority of armor, but it ignites in the barrel even if you jacket it in steel. And when it leaves the barrel of either a tank or a small arm, it ignites, and you get residue that's highly radioactive and poisonous, and in lab studies is killing the rats and creating kidney failure, lung cancer, adrenal failure, you name it. We cannot use it. And you can pull these reports up. We've had Dr. Rockey on going down through them. Now, this is how this works. Then I'll get into the news and the challenge. So they bought masses of this from the spent fuel rods from nuclear reactors, and they stockpiled it so there'd be a market for it so that the insiders could make money and control the economy. Because for them, making money is about dominating the economy. They use taxes against their competition to shut them down. They exempt themselves. It's all about consolidation. It's all about monopolies. But things changed in the ruling class. You see, first they said, we'll just stockpile it in case there's ever a war with the Russians, who the globalists were funding at the same time, to create the enemy, create the crisis, so they'd have a pretext to build up a police state and a surveillance grid and spy satellites and all of this stuff so it could really be used against the people domestically. That's why the globalists created a bipolar or multipolar world, or the illusion of it, so that they could play the two off against each other geopolitically, when the final equation, they were arms of the same system. But finishing up with the DU point, because you see, normally when I'm covering just the regular news of the day, I'm not really even thinking about that news. I'm thinking about things like this, the big picture. And so the ruling class in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, who were more than willing to shoot little kids up all over the world with live syphilis, or shoot them up with live cancer viruses, or shoot them up with, tuberculosis, chemical weapons, biological weapons, killing our troops, horrible testing on prisoners. More than happy to do that. Still, there was enough culture in the military that you couldn't get the military scientists and weapons developers to sign off and agree to have the troops use something like DU in general that would debilitate all the troops that came in contact with it. It was one thing with a mad scientist who'd been selectively, psychologically profiled to say, we're going to take foster children in case America gets attacked by, in a nuclear war. We've got to know what happens with children and radiation, so we're going to radiate thousands of them. We're going to kill them. The end justifies the means. The few don't matter, the many matter. That collectivist idea. But that was really just a test. They could test it on mammals and know what it would do. It was really just a test to build cadres of men that would do whatever they were told, including grabbing kids out of schoolyards, little kids, and doing horrible experiments, brain surgeries, you name it, on them, and turning them into Manchurian candidates. That was declassified in the 80s. Tens of thousands of U.S. children were taken. Many of them, it turned out, from prominent families, because they would want healthy, good-looking children, and would be turned into completely new people, completely programmed. Dr. Ewing Cameron and others did that. And this is all admitted if you want to look it up. Write these names down. So this evil was festering. Really, it was being done by the ruling class because they liked kidnapping little kids. Really, it was being done because they liked frying children. And the programs would usually come to an end. After radiating 4,000 plus children in the U.S., people got upset. They said, we thought you were only going to kill so many. Well, you're just killing kids for fun. So those programs got shut down. So they went overseas to do the programs. They got Israel to radiate 110,000 of their own kids in the ringworm children study, killing many of them. And I've got all this news, and I've got my challenge here for you. And I know a lot of you don't want to hear this. So this is scary stuff. No, what's scary is knowing this and not doing something about it. Not realizing, hey, this government isn't our government. And if it takes us where it wants to go, it's going to do everything it's done behind closed doors at an underground basis on a mass scale. Because I talked about Trinity and Beyond yesterday, the documentary from the 90s, where it showed the nuclear testing history and showed our so-called government trying to ignite the atmosphere with hydrogen bombs and trying to blow holes in the atmosphere. And there are studies out there showing that that's when the bigger ozone holes actually formed, was them detonating. Our government, nobody else did this, detonated hundreds of weapons in the atmosphere, the upper atmosphere, to see if they could destroy the Earth's atmosphere. Again, these are pit demons. The best movie analogy would be The Fifth Element, where that evil, asteroid's coming in, and it's controlling the weapons salesman on Earth psychically, Zor, or whatever his name is, Zorg. And they're like, well, what does it want? It just wants to kill everybody. Well, what's it going to do? It's going to kill the Earth. It wants to kill. I mean, it's basically, these people might as well be Zorg or Zworg. I mean, that's art imitating life. That's what they're like. They get off on it. The more evil, the blacker, the more destructive. They're like moths to a satanic flame. And we've got to stop them. Now, I'm sorry, I've got my challenge in the news coming up. The point is that we're beyond Caligula marrying his horse or Nero dressing up like a werewolf in ancient Rome and murdering children at public banquets for his own enjoyment. I won't go into how he murdered them. It's pretty graphic if you go look it up. The point is that we're beyond that. Now crazy people like that have antimatter weapons. And the Air Force admitted in the San Francisco Chronicle about 10 years ago that they have antimatter weapons. They just wanted to menace everyone with them, and then the story got shut down. But they do have antimatter weapons. They are messing with strangelets, black holes. They are creating these. The end of the world isn't coming December 21st. I'll guarantee you that. But it could be the end of the world any time with these crazies. Now, imagine a military which wouldn't let the troops use DU and wouldn't even allow it to be fired from aircraft at enemies until 1990. And they let them use it. And first it was in the Vulcan gun and the A-10 War Dogs, and it was in the Bradley fighting vehicles and in the Sabos, fired out of the Bradleys, and in the Abrams A1, M1, I forget all the technical specifications. The point is that then they just made a decision. They just said, serve it out in 50 cal, every other caliber. Have the troops move right into bases that have been bombed. It shows that mindset where they say, oh, we'll just deploy it in case the Russians pour into Europe. It was deployed by the 50s over in Europe. But just sitting there in an emergency, if infantry's overrun, then you get this out. But by the way, you wear a gas mask and you decontaminate yourself and you still may die. You understand you're part of units that have volunteered to stay behind here in Germany if the Russians overrun. Special forces. Yes, we understand. This is deadly, and it's basically we're going to be dying young if we use this. We volunteer. Till 1990, they just say, have them all use it. To now, they've got it at not just proving grounds, hundreds of them in the U.S. alone, Hawaii, places like Puerto Rico. I mean, they use it like a half mile from neighborhoods, and people complain and get arrested and stuff. This is the madness of these people. I mean, we have a ruling class that tried to blow up the atmosphere and set the atmosphere on fire. And they admit they did. I mean, and it's on TV, and it's funny. And now they're trying to do it there at the Hadron Collider. And you've got all of this going on, and they've got the troops using DU, and then they want me to salute the troops when I see them at a football game, or they want me to get a... And it's all tyrants that have attached the mantle of what our republic was. And it was never perfect, but it was better than others. At least the ideals were good. What we were striving for was good. They've now attached all their evil with this. So it's an example of how they use a crisis to deploy something and then, of course, later start using it. And it's the perfect weapon. The globalists made the decision because it kills the enemy on both sides. They want to kill you as a veteran. And I told you this over a decade ago. Now it's declassified. The whole Homeland Security system, the big armored vehicles, the checkpoints, the SWAT teams, the CERT teams, the intelligence units, they're not watching Al-Qaeda. In fact, they're ordered not to. They're watching you. Because the reason they're not allowed to watch Al-Qaeda is because Al-Qaeda is CIA, MI6, and Mossad, and Saudi intelligence. It is. In triplicate, an absolute, undisputed fact. And so here's my challenge to all of you in the military and to the police and all of you. This stuff's out in the open. That's how God works. This stuff's all out in the open. People like me are here so you get to hear what's really going on. I lay out the facts. You get to make decisions and decide like Nineveh whether you're going to repent or not. And by repenting, that doesn't mean just going to the church and giving the little glitter bugs some money. That doesn't mean, going to one of these 501c3s and hearing how you worship the corrupt government. No. Repenting means asking God, and if you don't believe in God, whatever, meditating on it, saying, hey, I know we're in trouble as a culture. God, please guide me in what I should do to resist this. And if you won't do that, then you've made a decision. Because all of you know deep down we're in trouble. You know evil's taken over, and it's really getting ready to run wild. See, everybody thinks stuff's crazy right now. This is only the preparation. This is like an army lining up on our border, or a SWAT team stacking up outside your house. Everything you've seen is just the enemy stacking up, about to come in. And when the hammer drops and the crises expand, it's going to be harder to shape the battlefield. We need to shape the spectrum of debate now and inject as much truth as we can, like the world is about to go into a crisis and we're not going to be able to communicate as easy. We need to inject truth 24/7 right now. So here's my challenge. I want you to look up the call letters. I want you to look up your local affiliates, TV, radio, print. I want you to go to Infowars.com, but it's all over. London Telegraph, LA Times, BBC, Associated Press, New York Times. And I want you to go down and see the program directors of the TV and radio. Or if you know them at your church or your gym or wherever. And I want you to tell them, listen, our whole society is being overthrown. Our liberties are being taken. The TSA is abusing our children because we're told Al-Qaeda is going to attack us while it's in the news that Al-Qaeda is being funded and trained by the CIA and MI6, and it's admitted that they started the Civil War and started the attack, and it is a war crime what's happening. They're taking families and saying, we're going to kill your kids if you don't drive this truck full of explosives into that police station. I mean, folks, this evil's gone on for a while, but the fact that it can be out in the open, the fact that this is going on, the challenge is it's time to recognize this for what it is. I mean, I've got the articles right here now where it's totally admitted that the whole thing in Syria and Libya was started by our criminal government and NATO, and they plan to do it all over the Middle East to put jihadis in and let Saudi Arabia take over the entire Middle East. And it's just too rich. It's too much for me to see TSA on the streets and regular Army and giant black Homeland Security vehicles driving around. And paramilitary police bugging their eyes out at you if you photo or videotape them, acting like you're a terrorist in this whole dress-up, play-along thing, which is really a martial law takeover system to start purges against the American people. And they said it was for Al-Qaeda when their own documents say it's for us. Our government isn't our government. It runs Al-Qaeda. It runs everything. To quantify my challenge, it's really this. Wake up to the fact that our government is not our government. It is illegitimate, and it is beyond criminal. And it's becoming more criminal by the day, and it's a lot bigger than Barack Obama. We sent the guys out last night to do a review of the new 2016, Obama 2016, and it's basically a neocon film. And whereas I'm not a fan of Obama, it basically says he's a secret Muslim who wants to hand everything over to Al-Qaeda. And in a way that's true, but not in the way they're saying. Al-Qaeda is publicly run by the banksters that use it everywhere to take over and destabilize countries. Want to fight the Russians? Use them. Want to go after the Serbs? Use them. Want to take down Gaddafi? Use them. Want to take down these countries? Use them. And then they get on the news and act all moral. Assad, out of the blue, has the military shooting demonstrators. It was on the news overseas that they were blowing up government buildings. Our media called them peaceful protesters. They had aircraft and tanks in Libya the first few months, and they were calling them peaceful protesters. That's how dumb they think you are, and it's incredibly immoral. Just like it's immoral to have the troops on television, BBC, Fox News, you name it. When the troops started talking, going, hey, we grow the opium. And so because it was kept secret and they were talking, it was like, ooh, wow, the troops say they're growing opium. Well, that's illegal. But by just coming out, I mean, you got to hand it to them, they're slick, and going, yeah, we grow the opium. It's how we fight al-Qaeda. And if we catch you with it, you're going to jail, but we're going to ship it into America. It's like, okay, we grow the opium, but you'll go to jail if you use it. So that's what I mean. They're just, yeah, the DU kills our troops. Big deal. Yeah, we're taking their pension funds and death benefits when they die. Big deal. Yeah, we're running al-Qaeda. Big deal. It's just big deal. Well, my challenge is, it is a big deal. Because if they can get away with saying torture is good and torture of children is good in front of their parents and secret arrest is good and the NSA spying on us without warrants is good and forcibly inoculating children all over the country is good without parental consent. No, man, this is a criminal government assaulting us. And the challenge is, start with something like al-Qaeda. I mean, here are some of the articles today. New York Times scrubs a mention of CIA arming Syrian rebels, who they go on to admit are dominated by al-Qaeda and who are blowing up churches. And then people go, well, you know, we got to get the Arabs killing each other. Nothing. We're not running any of this. Stop playing like you're a CIA black op commander. I mean, even if you are a CIA black op commander, you're drinking fluoride, you're taking vaccines, you have no future, you're planned to be removed. Any of you that serve this evil system, you are idiots. Just because you can grasp the end justifies the means in some Machiavellian way doesn't mean you're a rocket scientist. It means you're a fool. And I liken it again to the Ring of Mordor. You cannot use evil for good. You cannot do it. It will always revert to evil. You may get some big result up front, but you will get far more evil out of it. And it goes on. To break down, it's all over the British foreign press. It's admitted there's U.S. troops on the ground. They've been shipping weapons in out of Turkey, out of Jordan, to shoot down aircraft, blow things up. This has been going on for 8 months, and our media is like, that dirty Assad. And they're going to put al-Qaeda in to kill the Christians, and they think you're so stupid when they're killing the Christians if they take over in a year or so. It'll be on the news. That dirty al-Qaeda is killing Christians in Syria. Yeah, we got to have a convicted pedophile abuse you and your children at the airport because al-Qaeda. It's all a giant hoax. The TSA, all of it. All right, it's Tuesday, 28th day of August 2012. Big news blitz coming up, interspersed with Alfred Adask joining us, and huge amounts of news and your phone calls in the third hour coming up. Scientists successfully hacked brain to obtain private data. That's out of CBS. I mentioned this yesterday, but I want to get into it more today to talk about this technocracy. But first off, I read part of this. The new magazine, InfoWars magazine, did sell out. We printed 90,000 copies, 50,000 on the street, 40,000 printed to sell to listeners at cost. By the way, we did the math. Even when I raised the price, I actually lost money on it. So it'll go up a little bit next month. And we're just trying to figure out how to be able to even ship out more than 40,000 in a week or so. We've shipped a lot of them out, but still trying to get to some of the orders right now. But you can all get a free copy of the magazine in a digital format at Infowars.com/newsletter. Just sign up there, and every day when we send out the news blast, we'll send a link to it as well. I wanted to read, because it breaks down everything I'm talking about, my little letter to the public here, Print 2.0, the answer to the internet kill switch. If you're picking up this publication for the first time and wondering what we're all about, the answer is freedom. We stand behind the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the concept of 1776 expanding worldwide, the idea of liberty all over the planet. We are a firewall standing between liberty and the tyranny of corporatist and monopolist system that is diabolically opposed to freedom and the free market, especially when it comes to media and unrestricted flow of information. We oppose wireless NSA wiretapping and the secret arrest of Americans under the NDAA. We oppose endless wars, criminal proxy wars carried out in our names. We oppose the persecution of people for religious or cultural reasons. We are not left or right, we are constitutionalist. Because Obama is currently the titular head of the global empire and the adjoining crime syndicate, a lot of this publication will be about his actions. In the past, we were critical of Bush. We will also examine Romney and others who may replace Obama and his administration as the new front puppets. Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, our flagship websites, are rated by Alexa.com and similar metrics that gauge web traffic as the top alternative sites in the world. Infowars receives around 4 times, that's a typo, it says twice, the traffic of MSNBC.com. News via print is dying as a result of a perfect storm. People are abandoning corporate newspapers and print publications and instead are flocking to the web as so-called mainstream newspapers just regurgitate corporate and government talking points. Mainstream news is also dying online. This is why we are able to dominate them with film, videos, and our news websites, and now hopefully this publication. And that is happening. Print is impervious to a great extent to government kill switch and any other electronic scheme designed to shut down areas of the web the government wants censored. Digital and network technology make it easy for corporate control freaks to track down dissidents, delete their words, and even kill audio files of their voices, as they have done with my voice on YouTube in the past. Corporations have gone so far as to claim copyright on voices, including that of Optimus Prime, a character from the Transformers franchise. And to be specific, that when the guy that does his voice does interviews, they block that now, saying that, the computer recognizes it. That's right, YouTube is now adhering to third-party claims of ownership, many of them erroneous, to people's own voices, and using this as a pretext to delete content, representing a new frontier of censorship via copyright. Automated software bots are now being used to preemptively censor content with no due process whatsoever. Kindle recently demonstrated how it is possible to remove content when it invaded privately owned devices without permission or warning and deleted ebooks. As Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak recently warned, the very idea of cloud computing poses a threat to the existence of digital material and the idea of individual ownership. The director of the CIA has admitted that the internet is a surveillance tool that gives smart appliances the ability to spy on you. We'll get to more of this later. We'll be back. Stay with us. In a moment, we're going to be talking to radio talk show host and constitutional scholar, very informed fellow, Alfred Adask, who we haven't had on in about 6 months. Always good to get him on to talk about the nature of the globalists and how they see us. Got some interesting points we're going to be covering with him, and also I'm going to throw out some wild card curveballs at him, just some of the current news out there, and get his take on that in just a second. The next hour will be completely jam-packed with news and analysis. There is a lot of it. We'll be looking at the hurricane set to smash into New Orleans. New Orleans braces for Hurricane Isaac. We are also going to be looking at the fact that will we see gun confiscation again? I mean, any excuse to come and take our guns and loot our homes. After all, that's what a kleptocratic, criminal, foreign, banker-run state does that's totally anti-human. It hires a bunch of control freaks that enjoy doing things like that. Also up at drudgereport.com, it's starting to get a lot of attention. U.S. veterans forcibly sequestered in mental hospitals is indefinite detention. It's happening all over the country. Bunch of examples there in that article by Suzanne Pozell. Continuing here, we're going to be getting into the economy. U.S. consumer confidence tumbles to a new low. There's more talk of QE3, which would spur inflation, but the economy will continue to collapse if they don't. So we are in trouble if they do, in trouble if they don't, just how the globalists want it. Also, I mentioned this yesterday, but I want to get more into it. Scientists successfully hack the brain to obtain private data. And now Homeland Security is setting up mobile trailers where they say they're going to march you through these machines. No, I'm not making that up. And you didn't wake up in a nightmare science fiction movie. You woke up in an authoritarian system. Now, these articles are also at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Black Hawk helicopters over Minneapolis worry residents. They have unlimited bases to train at, but they do it in every town, every major city to acclimate you. This is admitted Now, the Secretary of the Army 2 months ago said, we want to put 4,000 troops in every major city. Small towns will have a few hundred, quartered among us that we pay for. Armed drones. We got an article coming out where they're now putting grenade launchers on drones for police while denying it at the same time. Amazing story Matt Williams is working on right now. But Kurt Nimmo and Paul Watson wrote about the latest urban warfare drill until you just get to where you accept it. And I saw on the news this morning where they're now ordering, well, they've delivered hundreds, they're ordering hundreds more, big black giant armored vehicles for Homeland Security. And they always announce it and say that, it's for the border. And some are for the border. But they let the illegals in and are legalizing them. It's just to keep us from getting out. Now the IRS says, well, if we say you haven't paid your taxes, no judge, no jury, no due process, you won't be allowed to leave. So Ron Paul's right. The stuff on the border is now just for us, so we can't leave. Capital controls. They're now getting them in police departments everywhere. Big, giant, brand new, huge wheeled tanks that look like something out of the Road Warrior. So it's a total buildup against us. And we'll put some images of those up as well, those big, giant trucks that are everywhere. Also, this is out of Yahoo News. Homeland Security campaign expands to sports. Yeah, they're even at high school football games now, the TSA. They're at Paul Ryan events. They're not even cops violating the Fourth Amendment. They're not even feds out of their jurisdiction. Now it's just, they're people with a week of training, an extra 8 hours, they can read your mind and do these chat downs to see if you're a terrorist. Hey, listen, you little punks, I'm not answering your question. Next time I fly, and one of them sits there and says, Mr. Jones, by the way, listen to your show. I've had one of them do that. Well, more than one, but before he got in my face. You're a troublemaker, Mr. Jones. Where are you going? What you planning to do? I'm like, I'm not going to play this game with you. The government runs Al-Qaeda. The government runs Al-Qaeda. It's on the news. They run them worldwide. They got the underwear bomber on the plane. And here's what I'm planning. Jesse Ventura's lawyer didn't file that suit we checked in the right court. Don't know if that was an accident or what it was, but tried to explain it to Jesse. But I've talked to the lawyers. It wasn't the right court. My lawsuits will be successful because I'll file about 5 of them in different courts. I mean, I am up to here with this that I can't travel with my family now because I will not let known pedophiles grab my family. They hire pedophiles to run in the major airports. It's come out, defrock priest, you name it. They're the head guys. They're building a legion of evil. And I will not put up with it. They think you're stupid where they grow opium openly and have the troops grow it and then ship it in, but tell you it's still illegal. They think you're stupid. Just absolutely engaged in all this evil and running Al-Qaeda and running Fast and Furious. We're in danger, folks. We've got illegitimate crooks arming to the teeth against us because they've stolen the Treasury blind and are going to implode the economy and pose as our saviors. There isn't time to screw around anymore. It makes me so angry to read this. The Department of Homeland Security is urging fans at professional sporting events to help keep the country safe by reporting anything suspicious they see. So here's my challenge to people. I want everybody to call Homeland Security, okay? Call your local Homeland Security number, look it up, call it, or call 311 and have a stack of news and say, yeah, I want your email officer or the person taking the call. I want to be able to send you all this data so it fills the NSA snoop hubs. I want to just flood them with it. And you send them Fox News, the Amr al-Awlaki, #3 in Al-Qaeda, working for the Pentagon. You send them the current news that's all over the place where Al-Qaeda is being funded by our government and NATO to attack countries that are peaceful and trying to destabilize them. You send them that. Hey, I'm seeing something and I'm saying something. I see dirty criminal crooks running our society. You should call Homeland Security and say, hey, yeah, Homeland Security, but first get them doing a report. Homeland Security is hiring convicted felons and pedophiles and rapists to be the heads of the TSA over airports. And then give them news about it. And give them examples of where they're hiring criminals. Of course, you're probably talking to a criminal when you call. That's why they wanted to get everybody with a criminal record. They're now hiring them to rule us. You understand how hell force this is? So, yes. I mean, I've seen the footage of TSA on the trains in Tampa harassing people, and they even know who they are. The group that protested them in Houston and got them off the streets there, they know who they are. They've gotten in people's faces in Chicago. Hey, you put us on the news. We have highway checkpoints. You better not do that again, and try to intimidate you. Just goons coming over, no jurisdiction, aren't even sworn officers, and the cops do what they say. We've got footage now of anywhere in Tampa. If people are out on the beach trying to take photos of the hurricane, cops run up all crazed and, you're on a watch list now. Give me your info. Oh, give me your... It's so fun to act like a secret police and buy the propaganda that there's terrorists everywhere that weren't manufactured by your bosses. I mean, this is so crazy to watch these cops gobbling up the death of America in the name of safety. What a joke. What a joke. We'll have to keep our guest about 10 minutes the next hour. I'm ranting. It makes me get so angry to see all this happening, and we're going to be talking about it all here on the broadcast today. I mean, here it is. TSA workers perform bag searches all over the city. It's all over the place. Screeners inspect hundreds of journalists, and not one reports on it. Just groping everywhere. I mean, what a society. How do you break a free society? You get people's hands on you. You get everybody trained. It's absolutely despicable. A bunch of federal goons everywhere taking over society, and I'm so sick of it. We're going to get into genocide committed by the U.S. government against the American people. Number one, with Alfred Adask, the organic law of the United States, the significance of national debt, why the Bible says you can't kill a man. Well, it's murder, not kill. World's first economist, the purpose of the Second Amendment, the foundation of individual sovereignty, and I've got some other news items to cover with Alfred Adask. He's a founder in one of the largest legal reform organizations, Citizens for Legal Reform. He's published the Anti-Shyster News magazine for more than a decade and ran for Texas Supreme Court. And he's been a political prisoner as well. And he joined us. You heard that whole rant there as we started the hour, Alfred. It just blows me away how fast all this is moving. Your take on what I was just covering before we go to break and come back and get into all your points.
You know, I can listen to you talk about it, Alex, and on one level, it doesn't disturb me. But I do the same thing myself sometimes. I get news that's coming in on the internet, and I'm sitting here in front of my computer, and I tell you, I get so angry, I can hardly see straight. It infuriates me. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I said it's like walking into a topless bar and finding your daughter dancing on the stage. I don't want to be here. I don't want to see what's going on. Something I love. The United States of America is being destroyed right in front of my eyes, and I'll tell you something. It infuriates, it drives me. You know, you hear other people, it's like driving. You know, if I'm driving and the traffic gets in my way, I lose my temper. Somebody else is driving, doesn't bother me a bit. Today you're driving. It doesn't bother me the same way it does if I'm reading it myself and I say, God. Yeah, I think perhaps you understand. Maybe that makes some sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And to watch the zombies laugh at us that are informed. Yeah. That can quote legal documents, that can quote history, that are informed. People think being ignorant is like a mantle of power. And instead, everything's going to Hades in a handbasket.
Yeah, I understand. And the way out is you have to learn some fundamentals. And if you can learn them, it's almost astonishing. I'm sure you appreciate this. We are dealing with forces that they didn't just start up in the last 5 years or 10 years or even in your lifetime or mine. You start to look at this and you understand that this is so massive, it's been going on for so long. You can't put a face on it, you can't put a name on it without sitting back and saying, you know, we are dealing with spiritual warfare. This has been going on for thousands of years. This isn't news. It seems like news, but the same process has been happening.
No, you're right, but it's coming to a head. The cancer is suddenly expanding, tentacles are shooting out of it. It's galloping very, very quickly. Because, well, we'll get your take on why they're moving so quick. Is it that they know they're in trouble? We'll be right back. All right, Alfred Adask is our guest, and he's done a lot of research into the globalists and the weird legalese they have. Why they have to tell you what they're going to do to you first. Why they follow all these strange little rules that they believe are spiritual. It's like Skull and Bones of Bohemian Grove. And we now know what type of rituals they do because I infiltrated and others have infiltrated Skull and Bones. They take it very seriously, basically like the old story of Faust and Mephistopheles. How do you trick the devil? And again, you may not believe in the devil. These people do. And they believe they're doing all these bad things, but they've got to somehow get around that. So we're going to break it down. Let's get into your first point you want to cover. Genocide committed by the U.S. government against the American people. Well, let's start there.
We've talked on the program before. I was sued for $25,000 a day. That's $9 million a year for manufacture and distribution of a controlled substance. I was fiduciary for a trust that leased a couple of tables, chairs, and some computers to a company that manufactured colloidal silver, and they brought me in as a defendant. This is Attorney General of Texas, and the key to it was whether or not colloidal silver was a drug, and they defined drugs in the Texas Health and Safety Code 431.002, subsection 14, and also the federal code at 21 USCA 321G1, and both of the definitions of drugs use the phrase man or other animals, and they use that phrase twice. They don't say man or animals, they say man or other animals, and that means they deem man to be an animal in the same sense if I said horses or other animals. Makes perfect sense.
And this isn't some new humanist thing. They've been saying this for thousands of years. They see themselves as men. We're animals. Frank Herbert's letting people know he's aware of that, where they're going to kill the young Duke Atreides if he's an animal and has fear and can be controlled. But they don't kill him because he shows he's human.
And it goes all the way back to Genesis 1:26 through 28, where it says, on the sixth day God created man in his image and gave man dominion over the animals. Under Genesis 1:26 through 28, I can't be an animal, and they can't pass a law that declares me to be an animal without violating my freedom of religion. And that was the essence of my defense in this case. The Attorney General had invested $500,000 and 6 years in prosecuting this case. There were 6 defendants ahead of me. And 3 of them hired attorneys, paid $160,000, one of the best law firms in Texas, got nowhere. I put a religious freedom defense together, and they dropped the case. They don't want to tangle with the idea that the people are deemed by government to be animals. And the reason this is significant...
They want you to opt in with all the liberals and say we don't have free will and we're an animal, because then they go, that's right, now you're dead. We have dominion legally.
And it goes to the Declaration of Independence and fundamental principles this country is based on. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are endowed by, are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. When they said that, they meant no animals. No animals are endowed with unalienable rights. The third sentence of the Declaration of Independence is that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. They're telling us the purpose of government, as envisioned by the Founding Fathers, was to secure to every man, woman, and even unborn child their God-given unalienable rights. These rights flow from God, but they don't flow to animals. They only flow to those of us who are made in God's image. And when they pass laws and they say, no, you're just another animal, you're just another animal. When they do that, they deprive us of the fundamental God-given unalienable rights that we find in our Declaration of Independence. This was the foundation for this country. It was unprecedented, and they are stripping us of that spiritual foundation on which this country was built.
And you know what happened. The judge was probably a high-level Mason. You brought in one of their secret high-level religious rights and said, I am not an animal. I declare that I'm allowed to do, what I want. I have freedom. Now you legally were, again, back under that basic covenant. And if people don't believe in this, the globalists believe in it. They follow it. And that's why they now want to make us lower than animals with the animal rights people that are funded by the transhumanists and the globalists. Not that I'm against animals, but the point is that now they want to make it where the elite speak for the animals and say that they have more rights than humans and make us lower than animals.
I understand. We've had people contact me. We do our little program, a little radio program. It goes out over shortwave. We have some people listening in foreign countries. I've been contacted by one guy in England and another one in Australia or New Zealand. I don't remember. One of them. And they checked the laws in their country, the definition of drugs. And they found out those laws for England and either Australia or New Zealand, probably both of them.
No, it's all the same.
Pardon me?
It's all the same.
Yeah, they also presume the people to be animals. This has to be a fundamental cornerstone for the New World Order. We are going to be, we've heard people say it for years.
Stay there. Researcher Alfred Adask is our guest for a little bit in the next hour. Then I'm going to have a huge news blitz and also open the phones up. But there's a new incredible article by Steve Watson and Paul Watson. I was just talking about this in the first hour. I just mentioned that the government had released biological agent in 1968 in the New York subway. Deaths resulted. Details remain classified. They put Army doctors in the hospitals to see what it would do. It was reportedly a bacteria. This just came out at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Big Sis begins releasing biological agents into Boston subway, assures public safety despite government history of dangerous biological testing on the American public. That's at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. We're also going to put it out on my Twitter, so you can forward it, please. We've got to get where we are upset about this. They have urban warfare drills, military checkpoints, biospraying, chem spraying, just to get us conditioned to, oh, well, they always spray us. We're not talking about spraying bug poison over Dallas to kill West Nile, and boy, is that a bunch of hooey as well. Wow, what an incredible report. The Department of Homeland Security will begin releasing a dead bacteria, into the Boston subway tomorrow in an operation, it says, will test sensors designed to detect biological agents that could be released as part of a terrorist attack. Who knows what they're really going to be releasing there? I mean, with their penchant for putting cancer viruses in the vaccines, little is known about what exactly the bacteria consist of. Well, of course, you don't let the slaves know that. And the DHS has not been very forthcoming with information, saying only that it is non-infectious material that has been approved as a food supplement. Probably yeast. The Boston Globe reports the test will begin Wednesday. Will be held periodically over the next year. Oh, just whenever they want at Harvard and Porter Square stations in Cambridge and the Davis Square station in Somerville. And it's all part of this new fear of alarms going off. But now they've turned off all over the country the radiation alarms. When reactors leak now, they just don't even turn the alarms on. So it doesn't scare people in places like San Diego. And they just say, oh, we're going to raise the radiation levels hundreds of percentage points. Just say it's good for you. Yeah, let your hair fall out. The seals are dying, you know, on the West Coast. But, hey, you know what? They got radiation. You know what? Dying's fun. Okay? But we're going to keep you safe from Al-Qaeda, who they publicly run. There's a special invitation from Peter Thiel, the Bilderberg Group member, trying to take over the libertarian movement, an event to be held the following date and location for the Ron Paul campaign. We're going to be talking about that. Boy, that's interesting. Going back to Alfred Adask. Alfred, a lot of breaking news while you're here today, but let's get into this now. You were talking about how worldwide, and I've looked it up, in the Codex Alimentarius and all this, it says humans and other animals. Now, this is not just a theorem. The Illuminati is obsessed with this. The illuminated ones, at degrees above 33rd degree, most Masons don't even know there's above a 33rd. And I'm not saying this is even a Masonic conspiracy. That's only one branch of this and a thing they use to, like, gather people who they think are well-meaning to control the good guys around them. The evil wants to be protected by a bodyguard of good. It's very sophisticated. So they've got all these well-meaning men like George Washington, you name it. He found out about it, wrote letters about it, so they killed him. Folks, just Google George Washington's letters on the Illuminati. It's incredible. That's the Library of Congress. You can read it, signed by him as he was battling them. But the point is that he said that the Illuminati was taking over the Masons. They took him over. It's kind of like when Winston Smith pops in the door and there's O'Brien to torture him. He says, O'Brien, they got you too? And he goes, yo, they got me a long time ago, but I'm ranting. The point is that it's all about how we are the animals or the profane. We are seen as cattle. And this even goes back into the Old Testament. You know, other tribes and groups that didn't follow what the Israelites were into were the Goyim. So Goyim, cattle, chattel. That's why the Constitution and Bill of Rights, and as you know, it is a title to those that were free, if you understood the riddle. They said, free men, no free man will be barred the use of arms or property. Well, they set the precedent, as you know, at the end of the Civil War, making us all slaves. They didn't just say blacks weren't human or two-thirds human. So what you've hit isn't just your theory. It is the essence of the truth of what we're facing, and so they're dumbing us down, poisoning us, trying to deny us good education so they can fool us into thinking we're animals and that we're bad and need to be exterminated because humans are trash. They do not want us to realize that we are not profane unless we drink from the fetid cup of the Illuminati. The truth is, to say you're illuminated, they've stolen all the terms. When you love Christ and God and want to do unto others and want to build people up, that's when you're illuminated by the Spirit of Christ. But they call it illuminated, but they're not illuminated. They're illuminated by the black sunshine, by the dirty black summer, by the devil under the black wings of death. I'm ranting here, but the whole point is, look at how they said blacks weren't human, so we're allowed to enslave them. This is as old as the hills.
Yep, same thing with the Nazis declared the Jews to be Untermenschen before they marched them off into camps. Untermenschen means under man. It means subhuman. It means animals. As soon as you're declared to be an animal, then you can do anything. You can be treated like livestock. The farmer can butcher the cows and the pigs and the horses and the sheep. Why? Because they're animals. They're not made in God's image. Again, you can look at Genesis 9:6, and it tells you why you can't murder a man. And it expressly tells you because he's made in God's image. That's why you can't do it. If you will accept the status of an animal, then there's what's to prevent you from being murdered or killed.
And that's why they have you swear an oath when you join the military and tell that you're an animal and you're garbage and crud so that you will accept it and sign the contract with the devil so they can kill you.
Not just that. I see this as spiritual warfare, and it took me a long time. I didn't get to that until I was in my 50s before I even began to suspect it. I see it now with what seems to be clarity. The spiritual warfare is this. They're not worried about your life. They're not worried about your property or whatever gold you got or your land. That's irrelevant to them. They want your soul, and you're not going to hell unless you consent. They posted in the books, if you can read, it's there. We deem you to be animals. Did you consent to be an animal? They need your consent. Satan can't come up with a pitchfork, poke you in the butt, and make you go to hell. It doesn't work that way. You need to consent. And that's why they have, in my opinion, that they have to put this out in law where if you're smart enough and you're diligent, you can find it.
No, it's a legal posting. That's why they tell you before they stage a terror attack on television.
Yeah, they need your consent. You need to consent. Say, yeah, I'm an animal. Sure, I consent to that. Great. You're headed for hell. I think that's what's going on.
And the Bible said before each culture fell, everyone began marking themselves and hurting themselves. I'm not saying somebody's bad if every person wants tattoos or whatever and piercings all over them. The point is, in every culture, from the Aztecs to the Israelites when they went bad, that's what begins. This is all the signs.
Yeah, I understand. I've got an article here from Genocide Watch. You can find it at genocidewatch.org. It was submitted to the Department of State back in 1996, and they'd identify 8 stages of genocide. And the third stage is dehumanization. And the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. And they go through, and genocide is a crime under international law, but need not include actual death. The only thing that's required is that if you commit acts that with the intent to destroy in whole or in part national, ethnic, racial, or religious groups, such as causing serious bodily injury or mental harm to members of the group, or C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. That's what they're doing when they reduce you to animals. This is an act of genocide perpetrated against the American people. They are creating conditions where they define you and me and all of our children, everybody you ever loved and liked or admired, they're all being defined as animals. They are using that the same way the Nazis used it to march people off into
And that's
camps.
why all the environmentalists teach the kids, you're scum, you're bad, you're hurting the earth, so you will actually hate yourself and not realize your incredible destiny.
That's exactly right. Will you consent to be an animal? And they teach us to do that. It goes right to the theory of evolution. Theory of evolution versus creationism. Creationism, oh, that's silly. That's
And of course,
nonsense.
it turns out Darwin was a super Luciferian occultist, had these visions while having a fever, was into the occult, believed that we were seeded by aliens. what's that term, panspermia. I mean, this was a devil cult that came up with this to get us to consent to be their slaves, to get us to opt in, to think it's cool to say we don't have free will. It is the ultimate joke. They don't want you being spiritual, folks, because they are totally spiritual. They traffic in men's souls, as Revelation says.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I don't know. This is spiritual warfare, and that's a very difficult concept to understand. Again, I didn't even begin to suspect until I was in my 50s. You find this late in life. I wish I'd have known when I was 25 or 30 years old. It would have made an enormous difference in my life. But I appreciate that if people hear this, they say, oh, spiritual warfare, the guy's crazy. Well, maybe, but I don't think so. You look at this long enough, you begin to see, and you say, oh, my God. And it's when you do see it's spiritual warfare, it's encouraging, it's empowering. You begin to realize, my God, the Bible is real. God is real. These people really, they believe in God more than most Christians. The spiritual warfare is evidence that there's another life after this one. It's not frightening. It removes you from fear when you begin to see, oh, yeah, I'm fighting these guys, but they're going nowhere next life.
They're angry. They are so angry.
Next time, they're screwed.
Well, I mean, they take on the spirit of the God of this world. They hate life. They hate humanity. Well, the devil hates God's creation. And that's why these people burn with hate at our healthy families. They burn with hate at everything. That's why they poison our food and our water. They love hurting God's creation. And we are God's greatest creation. Now, continuing here, breaking this down, I want to get into the other points. We've covered this with you. You know, every time we've been on, probably 10 times, the point you just made, but that was very eloquently said. Let's move quickly now to the organic law of the United States, significance of the national debt, why the Bible says you can't kill a man. You already mentioned that. World's first economist, that's a great breakdown you engage in. And if you really know what you're reading there, yeah, it makes perfect sense. You know, the 7 good years, the 7 bad. The purpose of the Second Amendment, the foundation for liberty and sovereignty. Hit it.
Well, sovereignty is the big deal. Sovereignty is the key, and we hear, if you follow, I'm sure you've seen this, where the FBI and people in government are concerned about the sovereignty movement. Oh my gosh, the sovereigns are coming to get us. This country was based on the idea that every man was a sovereign. This is expressed by the Supreme Court in the case of Chisholm versus Georgia, year of our Lord 1793. That's only 15, 18 years after the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, about 18 years.
If you're not sovereign, then the king or the bureaucrat is God.
That's what it comes down to. The question about sovereignty is who's the boss. And if I'm a sovereign,
and that's why the Bible's so powerful, the Old Testament. It's not saying some king is God. It's saying God and then man. You're in charge.
God, in the American law form, God is number 1. We, the people, as individuals, are number 2. And government is number 3 in this hierarchy of authority. Government is intended to be our public servant because we are sovereigns, compared to the English law form that existed at the time of the American Revolution. God was number 1. King of England was number 2. Government was number 3, served the king, and the people were number 4, down at the bottom of the pecking order. And the reason they were number 4 is because only the King of England received his rights directly from God. All else were subjects because they did not receive their rights directly from God. The government fears the sovereignty movement because if people ever understand the spiritual foundation on which this country was built, they're going to have an argument that's going to be almost irresistible.
Well, it's a contract. I mean, in all cultures, the devil deals in contracts. Well, so does God. We have a contract from God that we can execute.
And we have turned our back, much the same as Esau. He turned his back on his birthright. Back in the Bible, he sold his birthright for a bowl of pottage. And God later in the Bible, he says twice, he says, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated. And he doesn't explain in the Bible why he hates Esau, but I believe it's because Esau turned his back on the birthright. When he despised the birthright, which ultimately emanated from God, he expressed his contempt for God. He didn't know what he was doing. He was just a dumb...
And see, let me raise this, because it's such a great discussion. I don't fear physical death. I fear my bloodline and my family being good people dying. I fear that that I would have evil children. I fear that birthright would be desecrated. I mean, that's a spiritual understanding I have that no one even taught me. But I feel the birthright stretching back into antiquity, and I feel it stretching forward.
Well, it's the same thing with the unalienable rights that were declared in our Declaration of Independence. That is unprecedented in Western history. It's the first time any country, at least since the time of judges in the Old Testament, stood up and said, no, all men get their rights from God. And by virtue of all of us getting our rights from God, we are all elevated to the status of sovereigns. We are relieved from being subjects, and we become sovereigns above government rather than subjects under government. And that's what the battle's all about. If you people can catch the idea of your sovereignty and understand it's a spiritual concept, and understand that if you can support this with the First Amendment, for example, your right of freedom of religion, or Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution of the state of Texas, or whatever state you're in, there's a guarantee of freedom of religion. You have access to these God-given unalienable rights. You can also claim them under the Ninth Amendment, which guarantees the rights that are not declared in the Constitution. There's still, if people still retain those rights, declared right there in the Declaration of Independence, those God-given unalienable rights, they're right there if you know how
That's
to.
right. Courts can't take them.
You can get them.
Courts can say that black people aren't human, but if folks stand up and say, I am a human, they are. I mean, so much of this is a bluff. That's why they're so scared of it.
And again, it has to be this way because they're fighting for, in my opinion, because they're fighting for our souls. They don't care about your money. They don't care about your house. They want your soul. You must consent. That means you have a choice. All right? You can say yes. You can say no. Choose this day who you will serve, God or mammon. Where are you going with this? Your choice. You take responsibility for the choice. And they're saying just because you're ignorant is no excuse. Ignorance is no excuse in the eyes of the law. It might be an excuse in the eyes of the Christian faith, but again, ignorance certainly under the Old Testament didn't excuse anything.
Well, Christ did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it.
I know it's a gray area or murky or whatever, but nevertheless, they need your consent. They're not just going to force you in. You have to consent. And if you have brains enough and you have sufficient courage and perhaps sufficient blessing, you can make these arguments, and perhaps they'll succeed. In my case, they did in one instance. It doesn't mean that it would. I could try it again. That might.
Well, that's why we shouldn't just roll around like victims and say the whole world's corrupt. There's nothing we can do. Yeah, if we give up and let evil occupy everything, but good has the real power. That's why they want to keep us clamped down and tell us we have no power all day, because truth and liberty and freedom is infectious and people desire it. And once people get a taste of it, it's what fulfills. And once we start acting like sovereigns and have that confidence, then we build up humans, and humans then become stronger instead of this nanny state that seeks to make us nothing more than domesticated animals. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, Alfred Adask will be with us 20 minutes into the next hour. We continue to have this nice banner back and forth, just reaffirming our own thoughts and ideas, integrating the information, because we're not just here agreeing with each other, we're affirming that, yes, that is what we've discovered, that is what we found. But it's everywhere in culture, it's in every culture. This is the Illuminati secret. They're saying they're humans, we're animals. Well, let me give you a news flash. I'm not an animal. And they're trying to turn us into dumbed-down animals just so they can live this dream. These are horrible people. I'm going to break that down after Alfred leaves us and hit a bunch of the other news. But they're setting the precedent to poison our food, our water, to do unspeakable things. Tell the story quickly, because it's so important, of the world's first economist, Joseph in Genesis. This is important.
Yeah, Joseph, this is an amazing thing. I saw this probably about 10 years ago for the first time. I'm reading Genesis, and I read chapter 47, and you folks can go look. Chapter 47 in Genesis, and it describes the story of Joseph. He heard the Pharaoh had a couple of dreams. No one could interpret them. Joseph interpreted the Pharaoh's dreams. The Pharaoh had 7 great years followed by 7 bad years. He understood that's what the dreams meant, and the Pharaoh was so impressed he appointed Joseph to be his number 2 guy in Egypt. The 7 years came along, and Joseph stored up grain. We all hear that story. Stored up grain. And then he'd have grain to give the people during the 7 bad years. And that's the way the story was told to me in Bible school. I remember it back when I was a little kid. Oh, Joseph, he was such a great guy. You read chapter 47 of Genesis, and it tells you in the first year, after they started the shortage of food, famine. As soon as they started the famine, first year the people came and they said, why should we die? You got grain, why should we die? And Joseph said, I will give you grain for a year, provided you give me all of your money. And the people did. They gave him all of their money. And then Joseph took all of the money and he put it into the Pharaoh's storehouse. He didn't leave it in circulation. He crippled the economy where the people were not able to work their way through the famine by removing the money. This is interesting because they took the gold out of circulation in this country in 33 and the silver in 1968. They removed our money too. It's an interesting coincidence. Second year, people come back in the famine and they say, we're out of grain. We don't have anything to eat. Why should we die? And Joseph says, I will give you grain, but you got to give me all of your cattle. And the people say, okay, we'll give you all of our cattle. The means of production. They gave all of the production to Joseph. He gave it all to the Pharaoh. Third year, they come back and they don't have any food. And they said, why should we die? And Joseph says, I'll give you food and I'll give you grain to live for another year if you sell yourself. You sell your land and yourselves into bondage to the Pharaoh. And the people said, what the heck? Such a deal. Why should we die? They sold themselves into bondage. Joseph enslaved the Egyptian people to the Pharaoh. Prior to Joseph, the Pharaoh was there kind of like a TV evangelist. People would pay attention to him, but he didn't run and own the whole country. Joseph put the whole country under ownership and control of Pharaoh. And that's very interesting when you hear the story of the Jews later on being put into bondage by the Egyptians. And the Jews, oh, this was so unfair. Wait a second. Joseph, the first Hebrew down there into Egypt, he put the Egyptians into bondage. But the point to this is Joseph understood economics well enough 3,000 years ago where he could put a whole nation into bondage. It's right there in the Bible, chapter 47 of Genesis. Read it. And it's there, and you'll see. And I'll guarantee that 99% of the people in your audience have never heard this before.
No. That's why the Old Testament is a weapon system. People perish for lack of knowledge. They don't know. They think, oh, reading old history stuff. They have no idea. I talk to executives. I've talked to billionaires who aren't that smart. They just got in a niche or a position there. It is incredible how dumbed down people are. They're like animals. They just don't have the ancient knowledge that the ancients developed. It's all waiting for us. We'll be back. Coming up, big breaking news. Big Sis begins releasing biological agents into Boston subway. Isn't that loving? Well, we're just animals anyways, according to her. TSA workers perform bag searches at RNC. Hey, listen, witch, how about you're an animal? You look like a pig. I'm not an animal. My family isn't an animal. You're an animal. I tell you, these evil people are the real animals. That's why they want to call us animals. The Conspiracy of an Empire, a letter to those that serve the system. PlanetInfoWars.com article. We promote a lot of those to the Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. PlanetInfoWars.com, our social network. Civilians told not to fear blackouts or Blackhawks over Minneapolis in the dark of night. That's all conditioning. That's all of it. And more at Infowars.com. Foreign policy editor throwing a fit over growing resistance to Agenda 21. Yeah, that's a Washington Post publication. The New York Times is freaking out. They're freaking out. Alfred, I wanted to ask you that question. Why do you think everything's moving at hyper speed now, where they're just on the news going, hey, world government? You know what? We'll answer that after the break. Finish up in this brief, short segment, long segment coming up with the story of Joseph. Any other tidbits you wanted to hit?
Well, Joseph, I don't know. We pretty much hit it. I mean, it's just a question. He captured a whole nation and put them in bondage to the Pharaoh. And the people consented all the way, and they even cheered. They said, hooray, Joseph has saved us. No, he didn't. He took those people from freedom.
And that's the story now, with the bankers engineering the collapse, then posing as the saviors.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's 3,000 years anyway since the time of Joseph. And how many people have, it's right there in the Bible. How many people know it? It's right there. It's almost everything you need to know about economics. You know, you can get to good economists and they understand all sorts of interesting things about the velocity of money and M1, M2, M3. But maybe all the average person needs to know about economics is right there in chapter 47. If you can read, if you can see, and you say, wow, what does this mean? Well, you know, you can see this is happening now. We're doing it again. It's astonishing.
You know, I see the general public. They're either really waking up or they're like in this giggling, gibbering, delusional, childlike state. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I get what you, people are afraid. You know, one thing I've seen over the years is you can bring a new idea to someone, and that person understands the idea on an intuitive level before he understands it consciously, and he'll understand that if I accept that idea, it's going to put me in a position where one of these days I'm going to be forced to choose between what I know to be right based on this new idea and just getting along in life. And I don't know that I have the courage to make that choice. I would prefer to look in the mirror every day and think of myself as a good man because I haven't made any difficult choices or refused to make those choices. I don't know if I make that very clear, but people can understand.
Beautifully said.
They will reject them if they understand this thing's going to cause, it's going to make me have to make a very big choice one of these days, and I don't want to make that choice. I don't want to be put in that position. So they avoid.
But as soon as I started living like that, I was suddenly so fulfilled, it's like hard to even handle. I mean, these people are so empty that live in cowardice, and they think hype and trendiness will empower them, so they get deeper and deeper into trendiness, but they fill out surveys and say they're the most unhappy people in the world.
Right. Just trendiness, that conformity, it's just a place to hide. It's a place to appear that you're getting along fine. But I'll tell you something I'm sure you understand. You know, this is a lifestyle that is dangerous. You become a dissident. You become a thorn in the side. But you have meaning in your life. And I know I have meaning in my life. And I look at other people and I understand. I'm not making much money. I'm not a wealthy man, but I'm living better than most people in this world will ever know. I have meaning. And
well, you have your mind. You're not being chumped. You're aware. You know how things work. It's just spiritually, it's fulfilling. That's what matters. You're satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay there. I want to come back and get into that question. Why are they accelerating their program of enslavement with Alfred Adask? I'm Alex Jones. All right, one more segment with the always informative Alfred Adask. He joins us right now for a final segment, adask.wordpress.com, Adask spelled A-D-A-S-K. Again, I am Alex Jones, your host. We've got big news coming up in the next segment after he leaves us. And then I want to break down why no one should serve the New World Order. I mean, even if you're an evil person, you're crazy to serve this New World Order, this global corporate anti-free market government that is eugenics-based. Alfred, the question. Studying this, publishing the Anti-Shyster for over a decade, researching it, having 60 Minutes demonize you. I mean, you've got your finger on the pulse out there of what's going on over the years. I see a huge awakening. Either people are getting more awake and speaking out, we're seeing it everywhere, or they're getting more dumbed down. But how do people, national news, come out and say, Jones is crazy, he thinks there's a global government being established by megabanks, when all over the news they say global government's being established by megabanks? Aren't we lucky they're taking over? But simultaneously, the Southern Poverty Law Center, ADL, says it doesn't exist and I'm evil. Why do you think they're moving so quick right now?
They're desperate. When during the invasion of Iraq, Bush Jr. got bogged down. They went in and they gave him a dose of shock and awe, and they thought this whole thing would be over in 90 days. We had mission accomplished out there on the aircraft carrier and so on. Turned out we got caught up in there for 8 or 9 years. Zygmunt Brzezinski, early on, I saw him, I believe was on the Charlie Rose program, and he was criticizing George Bush, and he said, the New World Order has been, or global government, I don't remember which one he said, but the New World Order is what he meant for sure, has been set back 20 years, and he was angry, he was pissed, all right? That tells us that their plan was not to really impose themselves upon us for another 20 years. They had another 20 years going on, which would be 10 years from now, 20 years from the beginning of the Iraq War. And he said it's been set back 20 years. They're not doing that anymore. I think in large measure because of the internet, programs like your own, people are awakening. Not everybody, but a percentage. You don't need them all. But if you can get a big enough, you hit critical mass, and all of a sudden the world just might go the other way. So I see the New World Order as acting openly and aggressively as an act of desperation. The truth of the matter is, if they are really in control, they will shear the sheep, and the sheep won't even notice that their fur has been taken. It's when they have to become overt. I mean, TSA is not evidence that the system's growing more powerful. From my perspective, it's evidence that they're growing more.
And they're crazy. It's unifying everyone. It's one of the issues that's unifying people across the spectrum.
I know it's self-destructive on their part. It really is almost absurd. But it's evidence they're desperate. They're grasping for straws. What are they going to do other than kick people around? They've got nothing left. And
they're getting hundreds and hundreds of giant black armored wheeled vehicles that look like something out of a science fiction movie. They're telling us the drones are coming to get us. They really think that we're intimidated like they are. Now that may work on some of the cowards, but a lot of people who wouldn't even speak out are actually getting mad because they see the systems trying to intimidate them.
Yep, that's exactly right. Plus, they don't have enough corn cobs to deal with us. The truth of the matter is the mighty American military could barely handle Iraq, which is about the size and population of Texas. What are they going to do with not just one state like Texas? What are they going to do if they have to contend with 50? They can bluff us into submission, but they don't have the power to push us into submission. If they bluff us, we consent. And that's what they're looking for. Oh, they're going to huff and puff and blow our house down if we don't do what they say. Yeah, well, maybe yes and maybe no. It depends on how many people stand up on their hind legs and say, no, we're not going along with this. Plus, we've got tens of millions of armed Americans in this country. This is not, I don't care if you are, right now the police make up 0.3% of the population. They're outnumbered 300 to 1. The military is about the same thing, 0.3%. Even if you put them both together, they are outnumbered somewhere in the neighborhood of 100.
Oh, I know. People all the time say you can't fight the military if it goes to blows. I mean, it'll be like trying to get a hunting permit for unicorns. I mean, it would be so hard if everybody tried to go out and bag one, you couldn't even find one.
Yeah, you'd be fighting among themselves. No, I get to shoot. No, I get to shoot. You know, I mean, if you're fighting, if you're outnumbered 100 to 1, I don't care what kind of weapon you have. If your 100 adversaries, if all they have are bricks, you get 100 bricks coming in on your position at the same time, and I don't care if you got a 50 caliber machine gun. You may get a bunch of that 100 people, but you're going to die under an onslaught of bricks and stones and bottles. All right? You can't deal with.
Well, number one, they want to get the military and police fighting with the American people. They're now saying the enemy isn't Al-Qaeda. It's the sovereign citizens. It's the returning veterans. I see us winning the info war with police and military now in a big way, because everything you talked about 20 years ago, everything I talked about 17 years ago, it's all come true. So we have a lot of credibility. They're not stupid. They see what's happening. And now this new Army report where they're teaching the military that the Tea Party is going to link up with Al-Qaeda. I mean, the criminal bankers are trying to now say the Tea Party's Al-Qaeda. The police know that's ridiculous. They know. So it's tiny foreign offshore bankers, only a few thousand of them total, trying to get us to kill each other. That's how they're going to try to win.
I understand. And the truth of the matter is the police have far more in common with the people than they do with the government. They are functioning as knee breakers for the mob that runs this country. That's what they're being encouraged to do. But the truth is they have far more in common with the ordinary people than they do with the people that they're taking orders from. And in the end, their masters, people giving them orders, say, why don't you and them fight? Why don't you get killed? We'll wait over here. You go get killed. You know, I mean, as a police officer, you got to look at some of this stuff and say to yourself, you know, this is crazy. They're asking me to fight against hundreds of American people, and I don't really have a personal gripe with them.
Well, that's right. And expanding on that, that's why they're racing to autonomous drones and autonomous robots, basically an 18-wheeler that pulls up at your house and dumps a bunch of robots out of the back. That's what they've already got. They want to go to an automated system, but that's a decade off till that's really totally feasible. And even then, it's not like we're going to run out and fight the robots on their turf. You know, this is going to go into a guerrilla war if we get to that point, and I'm trying to avert that. But what do you think about the attempts of the globalists to track everything, to digitize, to predict the future with their computers, which they already admit they can do to a great extent when we use their systems and they can track us, and to go to the machine-based system so they don't have humans that can refuse orders?
Well, here's the problem. They're going to have central control systems on this. If you've got all these robots or whatever it is you're going to put out there, drones, I guarantee you, You put drones up over Dallas, Texas, there's going to be one place where half a dozen or 50 people sit down and control the drones. There's going to be one target. All right? They've got centralized control on these things. The drones don't think for themselves. Neither do the robots. Somebody's sitting back in a room full of computers.
No, but that's the problem. They've already got autonomous. They're going to be satellite-based. And that brings us to the next deal. They can launch false flags with these drones and blame other governments or people with it. It's a nightmare situation. That was a drone attack on 9/11.
Well, I understand. Airplanes allegedly did things that airplanes can't do. What can you say?
Well, I mean, all the calls that were real off airphones, not the fake ones the FBI admit were never made by the Solicitor General's wife. I mean, it turned out it was fake. That's like Associated Press. The real calls were, there's gas, I can't breathe. They just had guys that were in a drill. We know they work for the government. They nerve gassed everybody on board, and a computer took over. And it's just incredibly diabolical that they did that.
Well, every bit of this is diabolical. You look back on this, for example, we talked about this man or other animals thing. I harp on it on a regular basis. First instance we found was the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act. They defined food and drugs in terms of man or other animals. This is not an accident. This is evidence. This has been going on for a century. It's been in our law.
They said black people weren't humans, and that's why they could kill them or use them as slaves. This is thousands of years old. This is 4,000 years old.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, this is spiritual warfare. That's what we're engaged in. And I say, hooray. Once you get that, you understand this is great. I mean, this is great.
But you're not going to get the ammo you need at the 501c3 churches.
Well, it's going to be a dangerous time. But if you really believe, if you think there's another life coming, hey, spiritual warfare is fun. I know it's scary. I don't mean to understate that. I don't mean to, mistake.
No, I understand. When you actually tap into God, this all becomes fun. Yeah. I mean, even bad stuff becomes fun because you're doing the right thing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it removes that sense of doubt. It removes that sense of personal fear and anxiety. And all of a sudden, hey, I'm good to go.
Well, the globalists in the videos we've gotten from Homeland Security training, they go, and these people are committed, and they're never going to back off. So you better watch them, and they're all scared of us in these meetings. They believe, they stand for something. Well, I mean, what do you guys believe in? You serve a bunch of foreign banks that want to abort little kids and stuff? I mean, it's sick.
You know how stupid this is? There are reports from Southern Poverty Law Center that estimate there's 300,000 members of the sovereignty movement, whatever that is, in the United States. And the FBI says there have been 6 homicides since 2000, in 12 years. There have been 6 homicides that have been linked to sovereigns. It didn't even say that these sovereign people...
But we're the _1 threat.
Well, here's the problem. The homicide rate in this country is 17 per 100,000. If there are 300,000 sovereigns, we should be killing at least 17 people, 3 times that, 50-some people every year. And in fact, they can only point to 6 in 12 years. It indicates that we are orders of magnitude less violent than the ordinary people. That's the implication, and these are the numbers they...
That's right, but we're smarter and know how to navigate with our words is what's happening.
That's the problem. I'm a dangerous man. Do you know why? I've got a dozen dictionaries. I've got 7 copies, 7 different versions of the Bible, and that's hard copy plus what I've got on the computer. That makes me a dangerous man. I can read, I can write. I am dangerous.
Well, you've got the Bible, man, and right there, like you said, it's all right there. That's why they make fun of it all day. They're scared you're going to get in it. Coming up in the next segment, I'm going to get into the panopticon of technology control and the globalist master plan and why all of us have responsibility to stand up against it and speak out against it immediately. Also up at drudgereport.com on the left-hand side, U.S. veterans forcibly sequestered in mental hospitals is indefinite detention, and it's happening everywhere. And it's one of these creeping operations that they're running against the people. But again, coming up, scientists successfully hacked brain to obtain private data. I'll give you my take on that. Right now, police outnumber convention protesters 4-1 in Tampa, the Hill newspaper is reporting. They have the TSA on the streets searching people all over the city, including many miles away. We have videos and articles. People with cameras are being grabbed by the police and put in databases. I mean, it's just all an exercise of the police state because a bunch of Republican establishment people are meeting. I mean, whoop-de-doo. It's so ridiculous how they use any event now as a pretext to totally take over. Take Katrina. They use that to take the guns. Heaven forbid there be another flood in Louisiana. They'll come to get the guns there. Even in rural areas, you're high and dry on a house in stilts. They pull up, you got a generator. They go, we're coming in to take your guns. I mean, since when did the government do that? I mean, they want the precedent. They want to set it. What they don't want you to know about is on WOKV television, and I see these in local news every day. In fact, they have websites that show people that are involved in self-defense. We should create a whole subsection of Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com. In fact, I'm going to do that just on these stories. Because, I mean, what, over 20 times more often, the FBI's own crime statistics show that guns are used to stop crime than they're used for crime. I mean, look at the areas where they've taken all the guns. That's where you have the crime. Customer shoots robber dead. Jacksonville, Florida. Instead of saving money, a Northside dollar store, 57-year-old grandfather ends up saving the day. The man was doing some late-night shopping at the Dollar General store in Dunn Avenue when all of a sudden 2 men stormed and tried robbing it. Unfortunately for them, the man appears to have a concealed weapons permit, said Lieutenant Rob Schoonover with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department. That's Jacksonville, Florida. Hey, good for the police to not demonize the guy. Usually they demonize somebody when they defend themselves. That's how you can tell if you got a better police department. If they go, oh, good, the citizen took him out. If they demonize it, you get rid of that police chief. Unfortunately for them, one of the men happens to have had a concealed weapons permit, said Lieutenant Rob Schoonover with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, says the man wasted no time springing into action. Yeah, have you watched all these countless videos of the woman in the jewelry store, the guy, a few weeks ago, all these cases in the internet cafe where the people come in with their shotguns? I mean, these are citizens, Second Amendment, grew up with guns. They're boom. They aim right at them, just like police training. That's just basic training. Boom, boom, boom. They shoot them. Guys fall over dead or, start bleeding and run off. And the untrained crooks always just drop their weapons and run because they grew up watching television where that's what you do. When your gun's out of bullets, you just throw it down. Or if somebody shoots at you, you just run in fear. Because most of these criminals are just complete idiots. Smart ones go and join government or join big corporations. They don't come in and even case places. They just walk in places like Texas and Florida where every other person's got a gun. I saw an article a few weeks ago where a woman was jogging at a 25. I see that all the time. Guys try to rape her, she shoots them. But no, it's feminist, though, Gloria Steinem says, to not have a gun and just try to call a cop whose average response time is 11 and a half minutes. I mean, my daughters are learning how to shoot guns, and they're going to have guns. And when they go away, if there's even college when they get that age or even a country left, you try to come hurt them. They're not going to, number one, my 8-year-old can already beat me up. She's a gymnast and everything else, and she likes to, wrestle and box and stuff. She's meaner than a rattlesnake, and pretty as I can't say what, but just beautiful. But I just love the fact that my women are really empowered and strong, not this whole fake feminist thing, but that's a side issue. Here's the big issue I want to make. Here's what nobody's pointing out. The New York police could sure get some training from citizens that know how to use guns. Because all over the place, people come in to arm rob, and the citizens just draw down and take them out. And in all these hundreds of cases I've seen the last year, they never shoot anybody else. That's because they relax, raise their firearm, and start pumping rounds into people. And even if you've grown up around guns and think you're good, go take a class. I've done that. Go take a refresher. Go to a shooting school. The police are doing it. You never can get enough training. The New York police could learn from citizens. Human potential is almost unlimited because we are made in the image of the creator of the universe. And the establishment knows that, and they want to dominate the future. They want the spoils of human development and human culture, and they don't want physical, biological slaves anymore. They want to get rid of us and be served by machines and have a tiny technocratic servant group. And they write endless books and publications and literature on this subject and are declaring that they're already waging war on us by means of siege, shutting down our resources, our infrastructure, our culture, poisoning us cheating us so that they can dominate us, trying to breed us for stupidity and weakness. It is truly disgusting that all of this is happening and all of this is going on. And I want to have a message to everybody and a message to the establishment as well here in just a moment, and go over more of the news. The toll-free number to join us on the subjects that you heard Alfred Adask talk about or what I've talked about. We'll have time to take a few calls here. I do have Steve Quayle with a big in-depth interview coming up tonight on InfoWars Nightly News. Aaron's doing the news. I'm doing an in-depth hour-long interview with Steve Quayle tonight. He'll be on the radio with us tomorrow. Just a program note there. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. Briefly, we are 2 hours and 35 minutes into this global transmission. I would also like to add that, remember, this broadcast is listener-supported. We're not like Media Matters that gets money from George Soros, that got his money from taxpayers worldwide and banker bailouts. We're not like MSNBC that on record got jobs program money from the White House. What was it, $500 million? They got another $1 billion roughly at NBC total out of banker bailout money, your taxpayer money. We are not supported by that. In fact, the system fights tooth and nail to keep us from even being able to get to you. But despite that, because there are a lot of people that love freedom and truth worldwide, we've been able to get on over 115 AM and FM stations, global shortwave, #1 when it comes to audio streams and podcasts for talk radio at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com and on XM 166. So it's a big deal that we've been able to crawl and scrape over 17 years up to this point. And if we were able to have the same growth rate continuing, it would spell just unbelievable curtains for the globalist. They understand that if they destroy me wrong or try to destroy this operation incorrectly, it could turn us into a cause celeb. That's why they try to exterminate us via going after our character and going after our name. They want to assassinate our name instead of assassinating you physically, because they understand everything is an info war until the final blow that's physical. We are cheerfully marching forward into incredible danger. But I will be honest with you, that is incredible excitement, because the road is a good road, it's an honorable road, and honor is all that matters. And I don't say that because I am this absolutely wonderful, perfect person. But my heart is good. I want to be good. I want to help people. I want humanity to succeed. And I want to thank all of you for getting us to this point. We wouldn't have been this successful and couldn't have done anything if people didn't see past my idiosyncratic nature and understand with your discernment that my heart is good, because our hearts are good and we're turned towards the Creator and love everything that is good and recoil from that is bad, including our own selves, the aspects of us, our lesser angels, as they say. But we are in an epic struggle. And the fact that someone of my background and skill, which is not that great, but I have a wide range of gifts. We all have gifts. But compared to many, my gifts are not nothing to write home about, other than the fact that I've been dedicated and that I have been tireless and that I have been committed. Those are some of my better traits. And the oratory that the good Lord gave me, the memory, the vocabulary, and the willingness to go forward against bullies, all of that has brought me to the point I am today. And I am here just wanting to thank all of you for your support, and thank you for everything you've done in the fight for liberty. And I know you want to thank me as well, but I would imagine those of you out there hearing me thank you, you're like, why are you thanking me? We're in this together. We're under attack. We've got to build a future for our children and their children. We've got to wrestle with the darkness. And that's why I don't like being thanked. So we're on the same page. But nevertheless, I do want to thank you, because it's important that we understand we're doing something epic here. This is epic. And the system knows it's epic. The system knows this broadcast is for real. The system knows I'm for real. The system knows that more people are waking up exponentially, and they're panicking. And they're afraid because most of the minions of the system are not completely evil. They're ignorant. They're following peer pressure. They're compartmentalized. And they think they're engaged in the psyop on us. But in truth, they are in the heart of the psyop, and no one is as deceived as those that sit at the center of a spider web of dehumanization and death and think that they're winning. You never win in an offensive war. The type of societal and cultural mode that allows you to offensively go out and attack and enslave or destroy innocents that did nothing to you, that attitude and that worldview will come back on you. Just like people are like, yeah, kill all the Arabs, take their rights. It was always set up for the very good old boys that were tribal and were felt threatened by foreigners, and who the globalists manipulated into going for torture and war and secret arrest as if that was America. And the whole time, the weapon system, the control grid, was being set up for you. And so many of these people in the system, even though they have more courage than couch potatoes or welfare people, they still are cowards because they may physically be willing to face a little bit of danger, but it's mainly for their ego and for the power trip. But you're not willing to face peer pressure degradation to gain liberty for yourself and your progeny. And that is why you fail, and that is why you're not fulfilled, and that is why you will be destroyed. If this system is fully birthed, which it's now been birthed, and now it's growing, and now it's getting up on its legs, if it comes to maturity, what's been built, there will be no flesh left on this earth. That's the goal. There will be no flesh left. This is an attack on the flesh. The New World Order is a flesh-eating demon. The New World Order is a life-destroying force. The ninth circle of hell is described spiritually as being sub-zero. It's cold, like the depths of dead space, or the dead spaces between dimensions, the empty spaces. Death is emptiness. And we face the spirit of emptiness that seeks to empty out this planet. The New World Order, who claims that they want to save the earth by getting rid of humanity, are the ones actively trying to kill the ocean, putting genetically modified organisms into it at every level of the food chain. They are actively trying to kill the foliage of the planet. They are actively diseasing the genetic code of humanity. The DNA is becoming mutated. The sperm counts are down over 87% in the Western world. The cancer rates are exploding. Our children are dying and sick all around us. We are a cursed people who march our children up in the morning to the top of the Aztec temple to have our children gutted in front of us. But we do it slower with a Gardasil shot or a factor 8 injection. My dad's a dentist, and I was talking about how my grandmother's oldest high school and college friend, who's a registered nurse, you know, she's retired obviously now, my grandmother's almost 90, but both women are still intelligent, always is pushing for everyone to take vaccines. She totally, was a nurse in World War II. She totally believes in, USA. She mails us little dolls and things with USA shirts on. She mails my kids USA shirts, okay? I mean, this is somebody like, you know, USA, the type of women they shipped over to be in, the tents while people are dropping bombs on them. Just the government's good, I'm USA. And if they say take a vaccine, I'm taking them. And so she took the shingles shot, and it's basically over the last year almost killed her. She's still got shingles. And my dad said, yeah, all the time patients come in hobbling and incredible pain, people I've known for years, and I'll say, what's wrong? And they'll say, I have shingles. And my dad, after 3 or 4 times, said he starts asking him, per se, did you get this after you took a shingles shot? And they always go, well, yes, I got it about a week after I took it. Got the shot right over there at Walgreens next door. My dad looks at him and he goes, did you ever think you got it from that? And they're like, I don't know. I mean, it'd be kind of like if you walked down the street and a truck hit you and it broke 10 of your bones, and, the ambulance pulls up because the truck hit and ran, and they go, what hit you? And you go, I don't know. I mean, I'm in a road. I saw a truck, but, I don't know what hit me. I mean, if you eat a piece of fish and you get food poisoning from it, you go home and you vomit for 2 days. Gee, you think you might have got it at that restaurant? Going to the doctor, they say food poisoning? I mean, this is all just cause and effect here. And we've got all the statistics where the big companies knew that the whooping cough epidemic that they called, it was a few hundred cases in California, was caused by the vaccine. And it turned out they knew it and did it on purpose. And that even came out in the news, but back of the paper. And it should be all over every paper that they're knowingly giving you shots, giving you the flu, giving you the whooping cough, giving you the measles, mumps, rubella, giving you everything. And it just stacks up and stacks up. I said I'd go to your calls, and I got this message to the New World Order. I mean, I guess the whole show's a message to the people running this and to those of you that are victims. Will you save yourselves? Will you do anything? Is there anything you're concerned about? I mean, they know it's a death sentence to all the troops they have used DU munitions. They know it's a death sentence to give you these vaccines. They know it's a death sentence when they ship out the tons of opium into the United States. The U.S. military brings it directly in now. They just put it on the news like it's no big deal. You understand that we've killed 52 million American babies, and we just say, oh, that's just a choice. Oh, come on. Come on, don't judge people that had an abortion. No, a lot of people did it through ignorance, just like an Aztec bringing their kid up to be chopped up, thought it was okay to do. But see, it's this peer pressure. You can't just do something because the world and the entity that runs it tells you it's good, tells you it's okay. That's why I saw someone while I was waiting at a restaurant to pick up food Sunday, pick up our free magazine. There was a couple copies left there. Very excited. It all got picked up just a few days. There's almost none left around town. And they picked it up and went, ooh, Alex Jones, oh, no, and dropped it like it was a snake. And you know what? It is like a big rattlesnake. There's somebody that wants to be destroyed. They see the cure as venom. They don't want to be. I mean, it's kind of like in that movie, to use an analogy, The Omega Man, which is a redo of the Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price. Great movie. And they've released a bioweapon. It kills most people, but turns others into these basically undead zombies. And at the end, he's like, I found the cure. I've given it to myself. Here's my blood. I'll cure you. And they said no. And they throw a spear into him and kill him. And they want to die of cancer. I mean, my dad was talking about a 36-year-old office manager, because my dad manages a bunch of dental offices, who's, attractive, smart. She had brain surgery trying to get the tumor out. The same tumor killed one of my dad's friends when he was young. And another woman at their office has a brain tumor. And I mean, I've gone, look, they talk about statistics where they've gotten better at making you survive a cancer. Yeah, but they're not discussing the fact that cancers are up, depending on the type, some of them over 10,000 times. I mean, they are killing us. And it's all just this normalcy bias of, oh, they're having a run for cancer. In fact, I've got a copy of, it's very offensive, you know, when you see Time magazine. And it's got ads all through it because that's the new thing. You know, everywhere I go, I see these jugs of money at the gas station. Give money to this, you know, 40-year-old mother. She's got ovarian cancer, or she's got breast cancer. And I put money in it, but no one will even tell them there's charity care that only the illegal aliens get. No one will tell the woman, hey, go get, I had people in the office didn't believe me, and I sent them to get, you know, they're supposed to pay for it. Well, the hospitals are charities. They're tax-free, most of them. And I see an ad in here, stand up, tune in, the fight against cancer continues. And it's all these people about in memory of, or, oh, we're survivors. And it's just so sexy about cancer, and we're all going to deal with it together. This is to lead you into the pit so you can be killed. It's all about, oh, let's learn how to cure it instead of find out why everybody's getting it. And I'm not saying these stars are bad, but you'll never see anything about why is it increasing. They want to keep that quiet. Let me tell you why. I've had the scientists in here, the researchers, because my dad remembers when he was at UT, they talked about how cancer was viral and had been discovered in the 30s. They put it in your shots. That's my message. This thing's killing everybody. We're run by eugenics psychopaths, and we better turn it around. And they're putting a police state in place to forcibly inject us, and they're already doing it illegally with school kids. The government is already lawless, okay? And it wants to kill you. I mean, that's the message. It wants you dead. All right, we'll take a few calls here for the next little segment or two. I meant to get to this yesterday and today. I just can't do justice to it. I'll have to do it on the Nightly News Center tomorrow on the radio. Scientists successfully hacked brain to obtain private data. Cyborg tissue is half living cells, half electrons. And again, this is all going to be used against us. All this technology is having backdoors built into it, the globalists admit. Nothing is given to us that's any good. Anything they give us is going to have microwaves coming out of it to kill us or to be tracking us. It's all done to enslave us. So horrible. Let's go to Charles in Louisiana. You're getting ready to get hit by another hurricane, my friend. Do you think they're going to come for your guns again?
News for you. 2 days I've been on the phone 2 days. But anyway, they said that they're not going to use the Dome Stadium as a FEMA camp this time. They're going to bring you someplace else. They already got military on the street. They're already talking about salt water is going to be in the water. This thing here, they're so happy this happened, Alex. They are thrilled to death that this happened.
Well, they love to get an excuse to take over.
Well, yeah. Well, they're saying the levees, they didn't fix all the pumps like they told us to. $5 million is missing. We gave them $15 million to pick the water pumps.
No, they only used, 60% of the money for levees. But, hey, you know what? Government needs to steal it. They're good people.
The levees probably ain't going to hold it, go underneath. From the news here, but they let them know they're going to bring them someplace else. They ain't bringing them to the Dome Stadium where they can see the women get raped. No.
Where are they bringing them to be raped this time while the military's busy confiscating all the guns and the police wouldn't help anybody inside the Dome Stadium and just sat there laughing or busy robbing the different stores? Where are they going to take the slaves this time that they shoot if they try to walk out on the highways?
They won't tell us.
Oh, that's even better. That's a big news item. You know, Charles, you reported for us then. I'm gonna have to get your number. I had it years ago, but I want to get a report from you. Get you on the phone with Kurt Nimmo or Adon Salazar, so you can tell them what's going on as our reporter and full name and all that. Because I mean, you were the first to tell us they'd been shooting people trying to walk out on the bridges because you were there when it was happening as one of the emergency people. You're saying FEMA says we're going to take you somewhere secret. That sounds good.
They didn't say FEMA. They said the governor of New Orleans saying they ain't going to use the Dome Stadium no more. They're going to go somewhere. They're going to find some other place. He got on the news and said this.
Well, listen, I'm going to put you on hold. I had it years ago, but I'm going to get your number, full name and number, so we can have one of my reporters call you. Or maybe I should get an update from you. I'm going to get your number. I'm going to do an update with you on the Nightly News tonight. How's that sound?
Well, yeah, if you want, what time is that? 9 o'clock, I'll be here.
Well, listen, we'll tape it. We'll tape it and then air it when the show comes up tonight.
Well, if I'm going to be down there, I'm going to probably be down there. I don't know if I'm going to be home. It depends what's happening. It's raining up there right now.
Well, we'll go tape this in like 20 minutes. How's that sound?
Huh?
We'll go tape this in like 20 minutes, Charles.
Okay, you got my number, sir.
Well, I had it years ago, but just listen. You've been a great reporter for us, and I forget your last name. I know you've been in the news and stuff down there. Just do me a favor. I know you've been calling in for like 14 years, and I apologize for forgetting your last name. I'm going to put you on hold, give me your full name and number, and I'm going to have them call you in about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and we'll go tape an interview. We can really lay it all out for everybody about what's happening, okay?
No, I haven't been down there yet. If I go, I don't even know if I'm going to go. Because,
no, I know, but I mean, but you've always been a good source of info. You're saying they're going to take people to an undisclosed location. I'd like to get an update from you on that.
I don't know. That's all I got. The mayor said this on Channel 2 News.
Yeah, well, you were a witness to the crime last time, so I'd like to interview you about what it's like seeing Katrina come. Okay, can we do it in 20 minutes?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
All right, we're going to put you on hold. Get your full name and number. Come back, take a few more calls right now, then I'm going to interview him. Stay with us. We should pray for everyone in New Orleans and surrounding areas with the hurricane coming, and not so much for the hurricane, but the military and police will be, if it's bad, we'll be robbing everything and taking guns and raping women and killing people who try to walk out with their families. So get ready for government to absolutely have a heyday with you because they're so ready to attack you. The military will try to save people, most of them, but the special brand of police they have there in New Orleans will certainly be enjoying themselves. The military will be getting the guns. That's how they help you. Okay, let's go to callers that have been holding. Judy in Florida, then Daniel and Kathy. Judy, welcome to the airwaves. What's your take on all the happy news we've been covering?
Well, Alex, thanks for talking with me. I've been thinking a lot about what you and Alfred Adask were talking about over the weekend. I mean, just because I was having such a lovely time with normal, healthy people. And, you know, and I was thinking about the fact we are human beings. And that's something that I don't think people, you know, think on a conscious level that that's what they are, and that they really are being manipulated and being just broken as far as, you know, what the globalists are trying to, you know, to do to us. And the Stockholm Syndrome that they seem to be locked in, I don't know how you break through having people, you know, I don't know why they trust government still. I don't know why.
Well, look, victims, I mean, these people take shots and get sick right after it. Their kid has a convulsion at the doctor 5 minutes after the shot, and then they never figure out it was the shot. I mean, they want to be destroyed. And the globalists argue that's survival of the fittest, social Darwinism, that if you can't figure it out, they deserve to kill you. And so they just love it. It's too scary to admit that there's criminals over them, so they will do anything because they're delusional. And they're just sad victims in a trance, and we've got to pray for them and try to help them.
But even those I know that have tried to speak up to doctors, because I've had a couple of friends, one particularly of which went to the, you know, doctor. She got a flu shot. She was debilitated within hours. Her arm was swelling. She could not move her arm. I mean, you know, and this happened to another person also, and she, you know, completely changed as far as her ability to move around after that. The doctor.
No, but she likes that though. That's the fun part. I mean, it was like people get excited, like I'm going to the doctor, and it's like a little treat, and they get sick and die. It's like, oh, my husband went in for minor surgery, he's dead, but it's cute though. You understand? It's a sacrament. It's a sacrifice to have government hurt them. They like it. I appreciate your call. And so government's going to give them what they beg for. Kathy in New Orleans, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you, Alex?
Good. Tell us what's happening there.
Okay, well, let me just say this. Yesterday I was in Tampa for the Republican National Convention, where almost all of our duly elected delegates were disenfranchised. So we got our group, drove back to New Orleans to bunker down for the storm. It hasn't hit yet. We're waiting to see what's going on. We are very familiar with the police state. We actually did our whole info reporter contest on that. However, it was never shown. But anyway, I just want to say we went to see Dr. Paul's last speech, and it was fabulous. They had over 10,000 people in the audience. It's really, really sad what's going down there. People have stayed, even with their houses in danger, and they're just not listening to them. But I do want to say some good news. You know, we have a radio talk show in New Orleans, and we've always listened to you. And Gary King, who's one of the delegates that was disenfranchised, he is running for a congressional race in 2 months. against a very popular incumbent who has voted against everything that Ron Paul stands for.
Well, we're out of time.
So,
you got to send me some info on that. I got to jump, but stay in touch as the hurricane hits. And look out for government coming to take your guns and your property and to rob the Walmarts and everything else, and to shoot everybody in New York. But citizens, when they take on criminals, don't ever shoot anybody that I've been seeing lately. Citizens, total precision, shooting crooks. Police, shoot 9 people. Doesn't matter, they're the police. Take vaccines, drink fluoride water, GMO, mass cancer deaths. Thank you for the blessings, government. Thank you, oh, you love us. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I love the world government. I love them. I trust them. I trust Big Pharma. Oh, they're so loving. Oh, they're so good. On record. Adulterating and poisoning the food, the water, the air, by design in all their major white papers. I'm looking at one over there on the counter. Eco-Science, written by the White House Science Czar. All of this is being done as a scorched earth policy to absolutely wreck society. So if you're an Army officer listening and you're engaged in PSYOPs, and you've got hundreds of people under you engaged in whisper campaigns and disinfo campaigns and false flags and all sorts of other events, you feel pretty powerful. You're seeing the power of your manipulation. But you yourself are in another compartment of a PSYOP itself. So you're living a delusion. You don't serve America. You serve the bankers, who themselves are eugenicists, who serve the devil himself. But I've already digressed. I will try to stay focused, write some notes during the break, because I wrote a bunch last night and then left them at home. Then I want to get into the nature of the New World Order and really put a call out to everybody serving it. Understand that you don't have a choice. You'll either be enslaved and destroyed by the globalists and used, or you'll fight back and join humanity. And I was just thinking about a report yesterday that Paul Watson did that I need to cover, talking about here in Austin, Texas, but it's also in other areas of the country. The students are getting GPS tracker necklaces so the state can follow them around, and they're being given mentors by the state that check in on them. They're called parole officers. And, of course, they're encouraged to also spy on their parents. It is just such an incredible conversion from a free society. And now they've bankrupted people so much and raised the property taxes so much that they're taking our property taxes all over the country and setting up pre-K training. You notice the more education you get, the more school days, the more hours, the more dumbed down our children become, because it's official policy to turn them into little politically correct, addled fools that can, obsess over their race all day, but can't engage in reading, writing, or arithmetic. All of it by design. And the worse the school systems get, it doesn't matter. The more government control is then offered as the solution. And it's not insane. The war on drugs, when they say it's a failure, no, it's not. They ship more drugs in. They put more people in prison to go to college to be criminals. And they put more money in the big mega banks. And criminals go out and rob your houses so that they have money to buy the drugs that are overpriced because the government keeps them illegal and controls the black market. I was seeing a statistic last night. I was watching News 8 Austin. And again, this is a story that affects everybody across the country. And they were talking about Austin being 7th in the nation for home invasions and robberies and property theft. And the police, of course, can't do anything to stop it, because this is known as a happy hunting ground by the illegal aliens. That's the predominant group, but a lot of others as well, because this is known where the liberals live. And I was looking. It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show, after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, get your engines started because it is another live worldwide transmission. We are going to be here for the next 3 hours. And we have joining us coming up in the second hour, always informative, Alfred Adask. 60 Minutes calls him a super patriot, a evil sovereign citizen type. I find him to be very articulate and informative. We haven't had him on probably in 6 months. We'll get a updated view from him on the status of the world and what's happening in his own battle with the globalist. So that is coming up. The Drudge Report is now helping to make a story national that we have really been trying to focus on. And no, I'm not just talking about the case of Brandon Robb, the Marine, held for a week for absolutely no reason, for his brother and sister in his own Facebook comments that were not calls to action or violent. And that whole saga, since then, we have fleshed out the fact that they are grabbing veterans all over the United States for their political speech and grabbing people off their back porches, cleaning their guns, you name it. They're using involuntary commitment to do that. And now a Suzanne Posel story from Infowars.com is on the #1 website in the world, drudgereport.com. U.S. veterans forcibly sequestered in mental hospitals is indefinite detention. So very good news that that is now out there. And it's also up at Infowars.com. And we will certainly ask all of the listeners to get that out to everyone, because only exposure will be able to reveal what's happening. Also, I've seen these actually driving around in Texas, but it's in the news more and more that not just on the border, but all over the United States, these giant wheeled armored trucks, different variants of them, painted black, are showing up with Homeland Security dressed up in these futuristic military outfits. Again, just another sign of the ongoing incremental martial law system that is unfolding. We're going to be going over some of that today. There are 2 different reports. It's in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, and it's on local television there, but we have 2 different reports by our reporters at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, Kurt and M.O.N. Paul Watson, with different angles on this. Black Hawk helicopters over Minneapolis worry residents the first hour, and then by the time I get to later in the third hour, I am a bit more tired, and it's hard to be able to summon all the different points and datum that I want to bring forward, but there is a collective insanity in the ruling class. They are not in control of themselves. They're in control of almost everything else, or attempting to get control of everything, and will do anything to get the power. And the argument is, if they don't get it, someone else will get it. Many of these delusional people actually think they're guardians of humanity, when if you look at the fruits of what they've delivered and what they've deployed, it is absolute, stinking, reeking, ugly death. The fruits of the New World Order are abomination. Absolute, total, stinking ugliness. And I have a large vocabulary, but the only word that properly describes it is absolute reeking stench. The stench of hell itself. A spiritual stench that the soul can smell. And you ask, why do they do this? Why are they committed to evil? Because it is their essence, it is their nature. It's what they do. And they're not going to be argued with. They're not going to be convinced out of this. But there are many people who are delusional and who are slaves to this system who have never gotten outside their compartmentalization and do not realize that there is a false reality being constructed and woven around them, an artificial environment, an artificial habitat that's a cross between one of the high-tech squares you see in a place like Times Square and a gulag. And it seeks to destroy the very essence of creativity and the very essence of liberty and the very essence of everything good and wholesome. And it seeks to create instability and destruction and destabilization. All of the globalist policies being carried out in the Middle East to get the Shiites and the Sunnis killing each other. People say, oh, well, let the Arabs kill each other. That's how we'll dominate. We'll dominate? We don't dominate the Middle East. We pay with our money, with our blood, with our treasure, with our name, with our bad reputation. But we aren't getting any of the spoils of the Middle East, even if you wanted to be evil and feel like you were dominating something and taking something over. In fact, the globalists want to do to the Middle East and every other country and every other region and every other culture exactly what they're doing to us as well. I mean, you look at it, destroying the family by design. Concerned observers call media police last night report choppers. Now, when they would do these urban drills in 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, the media, even if you had footage of them blowing up a building they covertly leased, they would come on the news and say it doesn't exist. I have a news article hanging out there on the wall, a news clipping, with the Austin American Statesman saying that I was basically a conspiracy theorist and crazy, that I talked about black helicopters, next to an article about the black helicopter raids, making people have heart attacks at a nursing home 300 feet away from the police station they blew up in Kingsville. And by the way, we have footage of it. They had MPs one time in San Antonio come over and say, give us your tape. And Mike Hansen wouldn't do it, so the MP pulled his Beretta 9mm out. I mean, it's all completely lawless, that's what they're doing, but it's to acclimate and condition everybody. We're going to be going over that. Homeland Security is expanding to sporting events. TSA now rolling out. They want to have the new American handshake. You know what that means, in your pants. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday, the 28th day of... what month is it? I'm joking, of August 2012, and we are going to be here for the next 3 hours today. Well, before I plunge into all of the news here, it makes my head spin how fast the world is moving, how fast the years are moving, how fast the time is flying. And I know everyone marvels at this, but here we are right now, spinning around on the surface of this globe, and it seems like yesterday was just the year 2001, and it's already nearing the end. Before we know it, we'll be into 2013. And you watch, we'll all still be here after December 21st and the supposed end of the Mayan calendar. It's amazing how people put stock in such baloney, even if you believe in Mayan mysticism and astrology and astronomy. You have to understand that their own tablets and religious analysis simply said it's the end of an age. It's the end of an age in December of 2012. The end of an age, the lighting of a new hearth, a new fire will be set in the fireplace. And, of course, the hearth is the seat of the sun. So is the sun going to go dark and then light back up in some Luciferian exercise? I'm just waiting for the, quote, mainstream dinosaur media, and you better believe that they will do something like this to come out and blame the entire alternative media for promoting 2012 when it's actually the mainstream media and popular culture that has been basically force-fed on the public. But I'm already digressing here. Thank you again for joining us on this Tuesday, 28th of August, 2012 edition. I am Alex Jones, your host, and I am simply someone that wants liberty and freedom in my time. I want my wonderful children to grow up in a free society and to enjoy some of the basic liberties that I had growing up that now, to a great extent, are on the ash heap of history. No one can deny that our culture is being converted from a free society to an authoritarian society. Every authoritarian, tyrannical, oppressive, centralized benchmark is being met and exceeded, and the establishment itself admits that they want to convert not only to a political tyranny, but a physical and economic tyranny by design. So the ruling class, the people that own the puppet presidents and prime ministers, are on record in the Royal Society of England, the United Nations, the Club of Rome, the Council on Foreign Relations, ad nauseum books published by German prime ministers and presidents and chancellors. Germany has a president and a chancellor. President and chancellor, European prime ministers, Asian prime ministers and presidents. It's all promoted in our face, knowing the general public does not read political white papers, does not read economics text, is not investigating it. And so the establishment can operate basically as they please, as if we are in a coma. I liken to the analogy to we are all basically in comas in our beds, and the people rocking the cradle are vampires. And imagine a society where conscious, focused, intelligent vampires can get away with whatever they want, however they want, with a sleeping population. And, of course, I'm not saying they're literal vampires, but they might as well be, because it's the same effect. They have a disdain for the public. They also work as hard as they can to keep us in this mind-numbed position. And I am simply here to try to get people to understand that our society is sliding towards absolute humiliating and saddening and denigrating of everything that is innocent and good. And I am trying my best to not just reach out to the general public, but to reach out to the substrata of the ruling intelligentsia of the planet to rediscover your humanity and wrest control of the levers from the alpha psychos, the alpha maggots that are currently in control of the ship that is humanity. I thought long and hard today about the points I wanted to make on this subject, and I always push it off because there's so much news.